Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien vs. Predator Galaxy podcast. This is Hicks from the future, and before we start, I'd just like to get a few bits out of the way and apologise, I guess, first. So, this episode that you're about to listen to was actually recorded back in May last year, and as I think we talk about in the episode, it took a little bit of time and organisation to get to happen in the first place. We finally recorded it, and then Killer of Killers hit, Badlands hit, lots of topical things started to happen. And so this one kind of got left behind a little bit. And I'd just first like to apologize to Evan and to Derek because it was a really, really good chat. Really enjoyed listening to these guys. And it's a shame we've made them wait so long for us to finally put this out. But yeah, so when we talk about watching or having not seen Predator Badlands and speculating on it, that's the reason why, because the film hadn't come out at the time that we were recording this. But regardless, fascinating stuff from those guys. Really frank and honest insight into that time, making this iconic piece of Predator lore and literature. But enough of me. Let's get back to past Aaron and Adam and Derek and Evan. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien vs. Predator Galaxy podcast. This regular host, Aaron Percival, and joining me as usual is my fellow ex-CIA member on the run,
Adam Zeller, aka RidgeTop.
And we are joined today by two special guests, Mr. Evan Dorkin.
Hello.
And Derek Thompson.
Hello.
And these gentlemen are responsible for, I think it's fair to say, one of the most iconic pieces of expended Predator lore. And Evan and I have been trying to make this happen for about a year now. So it's great to finally actually get to sit down and nerd out with you chaps about this hugely popular series in the Predator franchise. So thank you very much for taking the time to come on today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us. Sorry it took so long.
Yeah. Don't worry, there's been longer. There's been much longer it's taken us to get sorted. So
we can reschedule it if you'd like.
No, I was saying to Adam before we started, like, I'm already tired, Adam. I'm old now. I go to bed at this time.
Yeah,
it's only 9.
Yeah, I just turned 60, so got to get these things done before I kick. I see my doctor in 2 days to find out if I've got cancer or not. So we'll see.
Jesus. Okay.
Well, I'm sure I don't. If I do, well, I got to start watching some movies real fast.
Get through everything. Make sure you're all caught up.
Yep.
Oh man. Well, good luck for that.
Life.
So before we get too far into it, we did just want to ask you both a little bit more about yourself. For our audience who might not know much about you, could you tell us about yourselves outside of Predator? Who are Evan Dorkin and Derek Thompson, and what do you do? Evan, why don't you start us off?
I'm a freelance cartoonist for the last, I guess, 31 years or so. I've been in comics full time. I write and draw my own comics, Milk and Cheese, which appeared in Deadline in the UK, and the Eltingville Club, which was turned into a pilot, the Adult Swim, which failed. But my wife and I executive produced it, wrote the script, did everything on that. My wife, Sarah Dyer. We also wrote for some animation projects, Batman Beyond, Superman the Animated Series, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. We wrote and did designs for Yo Gabba Gabba kids show. And my other comics, I write comics for other people to draw, like I worked with Derek, but I co-created Beasts of Burden, which is a horror fantasy series about animals versus the supernatural. With Jill Thompson, and Blackwood, which is a horror comedy series about a college that I do with Veronica Fish. I guess that's about it. I wrote some Predator comics once and drew one once.
That's a substantial resume. That's
but you're way more successful than I am. I'm much more
different path.
Well,
my name is Derek Thompson. I have worked professionally in comic books, feature films, video games, and animation for almost 33 years. Predator Bad Blood was my first professional hire. But the comic book industry, right on the heels of Bad Blood, was in a really bad way. So I ended up working for a video game project that Rhythm and Hughes was producing, which moved me to the Bay Area. And then I pivoted into feature films, and I worked for ILM in the visual effects art department as a creature designer and effects storyboard artist. I did creature design work for films like Men in Black, The Mummy, Mummy Returns, Van Helsing. I freelanced for a number of years, continuing my creature design work on projects like 13 Ghosts, but I also kept involved in comic books here and there, drawing the Abe Sapien one-shot, which was the first spin-off. I also did comic book artwork featured in the film Unbreakable, and loads of other odds and ends in terms of freelance before I landed at the dream gig, which was a year at Skywalker Ranch, working in the art department for Star Wars Episode 3. That was a pretty significant turning point, and that led me to my still current gig. I've worked for Pixar Animation Studios as a story artist and story supervisor for over 20 years now. I'm still there, and contributed to numerous films and projects like WALL-E, Toy Story The Time Forgot, Lightyear, Toy Story 4, too many to name. I still dabble and try to find ways to draw monsters anywhere and any way I can. You might think, looking at Predator Bad Blood, that it's hard to imagine someone that drew this could work at Pixar, but weirdly they hired me. I didn't put that one in my portfolio, probably a little bit too much gore. Yeah, and I still draw monsters for fun. And yeah, reflecting on decades of this work, it's weird how many things stay consistent and how much has changed. But that's where I am today.
I'm not good at. I guess I should say that I drew Big Predator, Big Game, which was the second Dark Horse series, and I wrote Predator Bad Blood, which Derek illustrated and did story breakdowns on and everything. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to mention that in the intro, didn't I? The iconic thing that these guys are here for is Predator Bad Blood.
My friend Paul and I do a horror movie podcast, which is very, we don't. It's not the super professional thing or anything. We don't make bones about it, and it's like a zine. But we always forget. We forget to introduce ourselves half the time. So I mean, I'm not good at that sort of thing. I'd rather talk about the movies than talk about myself, to be honest.
So a tradition, I'm sure, on every single fucking genre podcast that exists is that whenever we have new guests on, especially guests such as yourselves, that have had a hand in the franchises, in shaping the franchises, is we love to know about the first memories, the first times that you guys got to experience, the Predator franchise. So do you guys remember the first time you came across our favorite extraterrestrial big game hunter? Derek, why don't you lead us off on that one?
Yeah, well, Predator was pretty much like a megaton bomb in my life experience. I was in high school. I saw Predator on opening weekend when it was released theatrically in 1987. Like I said, I drew and I sketched all the time, and I love drawing monsters. And I left that theater trying to remember, how do I draw this monster? And I got obsessed with drawing the Predator, trying to remember to draw the Predator, because it was such a iconic reveal. And Arnold Schwarzenegger movies were super fun at the time. I remember vividly the weekend Predator came out, having seen it on opening day or second day, and then watching the Siskel and Ebert review it negatively. And I disagreed. And I'm like, they're wrong. That movie was great. So it made a big impact, and I spent a good amount of time in high school sketching what I tried to remember the thing to look like. And that carried me right. I went right from high school into art school. I studied illustration at Otis Parsons. And then Predator 2 came out right, I think, my senior year or freshman year of college. So the momentum continued. And it wasn't long before I had been practicing drawing the Predator. A friend of mine who was a writer who I ended up collaborating with on the Abe Sapien project, Brian McDonald, he and I were working on a pitch proposal for Dark Horse because the Predator comics had been coming out. And it was called Predator's Past, and it was Predator. Each issue was a Predator story set in a different historical period. all rooted in that Predator 2 moment with the gun and stuff. And Brian had friends in the visual or in the makeup effects industry, so we actually got to go to Stan Winston's studio, and I got to shoot photo reference of the Predator 2. So this is probably 91, beginning of 92. They were still making penguins for Batman Returns. And I remember seeing concept art for Jurassic Park on the walls. But I got to photograph the Predator 2 maquette in Winston's studio. So suddenly I had reference that was like extra, which was really hard to get at the time. And it was that reference that I was drawing test pages of Predator from. And so literally from 87 to about 90 into early 92, those 5 years, I had Predator kind of on the brain artistically. I'd done some sample pages, and I grew up in San Diego, so I grew up going to the Comic-Con since the 70s. But in the 90s, when I was in school, we would go and try and, show our pitches or show work. And it was summer of 92 that I brought my Predator sample pages and showed them to Chris Warner. And I remember him saying, "Wow, you draw the Predator better than I do." And he's like, "I have an idea." And he introduced me to Evan, and Evan had the project, and they hired me on the spot on the sand and on the floor. So that's where the gig started in summer of 92.
I didn't remember you getting hired at the con.
On the spot. Chris Warner saw the pages, and then he either went to you and got back to me, or he brought me to you to meet you. But that was the Comic-Con that changed my life. Like, I met so many of my sort of heroes, and people kept introducing me around. Mignola was introducing me and showing my sketchbook to other people, meeting Chris Warner, meeting you. It was I got to meet Bernie Wrightson that year. Yeah.
Well, back then since you went to San Diego so much, I was just doing an interview about this, which touched on this. San Diego was such a pivotal show, but people don't really know what it was like anymore because it was a smaller show and you could meet it. Almost anyone and everyone.
Yes, you could walk right up to people, and
especially if you were professional, because it was a smaller show.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the biggest show in America, but it was still a show where you didn't have private parties then. You had a party where everybody who was in it was working for all the different companies. I did my first show in 87, and I met lots of people who ended up at Dark Horse. Bob and Diana were at Bob Schreck and Diana Schutz. Diana hired me for had me do the tryouts for Big Game because I had met them at San Diego. I met Fabian Nicieza, co-creator Deadpool, when he was in marketing at Marvel, and ended up getting the Bill and Ted's gig because 91 was my big year.
It's really hard to overestimate how impactful and meaningful it was at San Diego as a networking option. Yeah. Predator, Bad Blood, this conversation, this moment, this life wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been that sort of kismet. Evan, did you see Predator on opening weekends? Did you go?
I don't know. I don't know why. Actually, I didn't see Alien or Predator, and those are two films that I should have seen opening day because I was a big, huge nerd. But actually, by that time, it came out in 87.
87.
I was probably going out to clubs and trying to meet girls and getting drunk a lot. I was probably working in a club at that point.
Do you remember the first time you saw the film?
Yeah, I saw it on cable. So I may have seen it on one Metco home theater. It was long enough ago, way pre-streaming, obviously, but pre-explosion of cable. I don't even think it was HBO or Cinemax already or Showtime. It was local. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, but I was never this is going to be horrible. I've never really liked the Predator films. So I'm sorry about that. I mean, there's a lot of potential, obviously, for storytelling and whatnot, but even when I saw the first one, I was just like, there was stuff about. I mean, I thought it was a better war movie, better Schwarzenegger movie than it was a science fiction horror movie. I thought that all the energy in the movie kind of ends when the Predator takes over.
That's funny.
And
I think monsters are just catnip for me, and
we talk about it all the time. I'm a monster freak, but I mean, I just felt it just turns into a slasher, and I mean, I've seen it a couple of times. I don't think it's a terrible movie or anything like that, but I just thought, there's a lot of things about it that my writer brain got annoyed with because it was like he's like the universe's greatest hunter, but he's invisible and he shoots people in the back with a targeting system. I mean, fucking Christ, man! It would be like that'd be like a movie about Arnold Schwarzenegger coming to like Cambodia and killing children at night. It's just like stabbing him in the back.
Well, maybe that's what appealed to my 15-year-old
Maybe.
brain.
I mean,
I don't know. Like, I still defend Predator 2 to this day as way more entertaining than a lot of people.
You're a lot more.
I'm forgiving. I mean, but both Evan and I, you guys should know, have a deep love for and affinity for cult cinema and bad cinema,
monsters in general.
But there is joy in my soul for movies that are broken and stupid. And interestingly, I didn't lose my appreciation for Predator. I still feel bonded to it. I can still enjoy it when I watch it. Predator 2 I haven't seen lately, but I'd watch it again. I'd watch those again any day over the...
I think Predator is a really good 80s movie, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's got so many things going in on it that are, Shane Black's running around in there.
Yes.
But it feels like a Sergeant Rock movie that a monster walks into. And I thought it could have been a little more fun than that. But it's like I like the American Native character, right? To me, he's the coolest guy in the whole movie.
Yeah.
He says, "Fuck it, I'm going to go out on a log, like the King Kong scene. I'm going to fight the Predator." And what do? They don't show any of it.
Yeah,
they
but that's good
that
imagination. Yeah. Dude, in the late 80s, I was peaking in my comic because I wanted to do comic books, and that sequence with the guy on the log cutting his chest, I kept thinking that's the guy they should get for Wolverine. I thought that's who they should have cast for Wolverine. Look at those shots again when Billy faces the Predator, and just put some side chops in your imagination. You got some Wolverine.
I just thought it was like, we know Schwarzenegger's our main guy and everything like that. And he's going to be, the Predator can like basically mangle him for 10 minutes and he's still going to be walking, even though they've set this guy up. In wrestling terms, he should never have had a chance going mano a mano with the Predator, right? The thing's wearing armor and it's got this head that you can't do much with. And he's able to just start alley fighting with it. And, I just thought that was kind of ridiculous, but whatever. And also the voice thing that it does where it records, why does it all, it's superior technology. It comes from the stars, but it can't fucking do what like a phone recorder could do and get a whole conversation. It can't like translate that and figure out that it's just saying like, catchphrases. It's a silly bit of business, but I loved the heat sensing stuff. I don't know how they did the effect. I mean, the effect was really cool. The visibility effect was cool. I mean, it's just a cool movie. I just don't think it's great. I'm an Aliens guy. If you're going to talk Aliens versus Predator, I think Aliens movies have more weight to them and are more interesting than Predator but Predator, obviously opens up. I mean, look how many stories they've been able to tell in the comics and the movies, because it's an interesting, nothing about this race, so people want to obviously find out more. Yeah. And it's, if something's going to come hunting to Earth and they're establishing over time, they can just throw, here it is in the American Revolutionary, here it is in the Boer Wars. But, I never really wanted to know much more about the Predator. I just wanted
and yet you mustered a lot of creativity in writing Bad Blood, and you had some ideas and you were excited about stuff. So
no, I was. I thought that there was more that you could do about it than just have predators coming on a hunting.
Yes. Yes.
And it was at that point you couldn't add anything really. I mean, we added some designs and some character ideas, but you couldn't go to Dark Horse and then 20th Century Fox and say, "Oh, we figured out what your predators do."
Yeah,
I mean, that everybody knew you can't. When Aaron, I believe, said something about like we contributed to the franchise. I personally never feel like I've contributed.
Well, no, I'll push back a little bit on that and suggest
the fans seem have taken things from what I only recently.
There's one big high concept idea in Predator Bad Blood that had not existed before, and that's a predator hunting a predator. And
right, no, but what I'm saying is that when I work on a licensed book, I've worked on I've worked on The Simpsons, I've worked on The Mask, Predator, and a bunch of other things. I never feel that I'm adding. I never felt at the time that the comics were part of the. Like, I never go to convention and go, "Hi, I'm a Predator franchise guy." It felt the movies are the franchise, the games. If there's, things the studios put together and put out there to me are canon. The comics, this is just maybe it's a fan thing for me, but I've always separated them. When I read the Star Wars comics as a kid, I loved them, but I never thought they were part of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah,
the Marvel comics.
It's funny you mentioned that, because Star Wars and Star Wars canon is always a really interesting. We worked right when we finished on episode 3. This is a slight detour, and then we can get back to Predator. But when we finished on that Star Wars episode 3, some of the artists in the art department and I, we proposed and did a comic book anthology for Dark Horse called Visionaries, and we got to basically do whatever we wanted in the Star Wars world. And I did a story about Emperor Palpatine doing a Sith meditation, and everybody kind of did various stuff, and the book got published and was very popular. And there was a lot of debate online and and questions about what was canon and what was lore and what wasn't. And it's so interesting. My story fell right on the edge, and a lot of people feel is appropriately canon, whereas other ones are really not. But Predator, I don't know if fans are as
It's really interesting because Aaron and Adam, it would be very interesting to see you guys talk to, if possible, because it's hard to get them, Mike Richardson and Randy Stradley, because Dark Horse has such an interesting situation with all of the licensed books. I mean, they really changed licensed comics in our industry. I'm not blowing smoke up their ass because I've been working with them for so long and whatnot.
No, it just wasn't taken seriously until their success with Aliens.
Exactly.
And Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars.
Well,
that was
Star Wars, Aliens, Terminator, RoboCop, Predator, The Thing.
AVP.
I mean, that was their idea. And for a while, I'm not involved in those fandoms, but, just from osmosis, from the internet and from being in comics, you got the idea that a lot of Dark Horse's stuff was taken as canon for a long time. Or at least, but I mean, Aliens versus Predator was Dark Horse's doing. Dark Horse kept a lot of these franchises alive while the movies weren't being made, which is why I always think it's kind of raw that they got everything yanked from them. But, that's mergers. That's live by corporate, die by corporate. But I mean, they've built up so many characters. Like I remember seeing Star Wars characters on the covers of their books that seemed to be used eventually in toys and things like that. It's kind of fascinating. But this is a hard. I mean, I've worked on a bunch of TV stuff and animation stuff, and I still don't think of myself as an animation or TV writer or designer. So it's like that's probably me. But only in the last couple of years did I find out that there were people interested in Predator Bad Blood. And I think Derek, one of the first times when we, hooked back up and started talking again, I was telling him I just stumbled into a rabbit hole of they had names for the Predator serial killer.
Yeah.
And they were using him to describe other types of, it was just fascinating to me that anybody can. Well, of course, when they made the NECA toys, that was
probably, I would get periodically over the years, I would get somebody sending me an email gushing about Predator, wanting a tattoo, was it okay? But I never really saw the book or considered, and plus I'd gotten out of comics because comics was not viable in terms of making a living. But when the NECA, however you pronounce it.
How do you pronounce that? I have no idea.
I think it's NECA.
NECA. When NECA toys came out, they plastered them with my artwork, and then I was like, "Whoa, is that okay? Can they do that? Do I have to get?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's nice if they sent you one.
Well, yeah, and I learned a little bit about. They didn't send me one. I
know.
Yeah, they
didn't send anybody.
I did some research and digging, and basically, the right to reproduce and all the material was out of my hands. So
no, I knew that from working at Marvel.
That was news to me, but it was also flattering. It was like, wow, we must have done something to connect.
It was. I'm still a little pissed, though. I think that if they can do the research and say, hey, Evan Dorkin and Derek Thompson, they used our names and stuff, and they used the comic in the promotion, you could send us one fucking time.
Yeah, I know. It's silly.
They're
but
expensive. I don't have one. I couldn't afford it at the time.
Ultimately, I was like, okay, well, it's cool. That something connected.
There's a nice statue too. There's a big statue of your design. I forget, made in some overseas, I think. I don't know. But the Predator, the Bad Blood Predator became a thing, and I had no idea up until fairly recently. I mean, I knew about the toys, but I looked at a Predator fan site, and I was kind of knocked out about the amount of thought put into the thoughts about the comic, about the fact that I wish I could remember the word for it, but they had a Predator class or a Predator type that is represented by the Bad Blood.
Touched a nerve.
I don't know any of that. I don't even know the name of the Predator race. I know that they have one.
Yautja, the Yautja.
Well, that's opening up a whole other can of worms.
Yeah,
gentlemen.
we talked
Let's not can of worms that.
That sounds like an Ewok coughing
that's
choking on a cough drop. Yautja.
But yeah, not many Predator comics had toys made after them, and your guys's was one of the few. So
yeah, I'm surprised by the whole Predator fandom. It was really eye opening. So I was like, Derek, you gotta check this out. People have talked about our book. It has it didn't, because the book didn't do very well when it came out. The comics, the big game did fantastically because the industry was in better place at the time.
The industry was eroding really fast as the last couple issues of Bad Blood were coming out, and it definitely did not. It wasn't a big royalty provider.
No, I think Big Game sold about 250,000 copies of the first issue or so. I got a royalty check for $6,000 back in 91 or 92, and I was like knocked out. I went out and bought a stereo and the biggest TV that they made for my home studio, which was basically my entire little apartment. And but I was really excited because I was like, hey, I'm working on this new one. It was originally called Body Count.
Right, that's right. I remember this. It was called Body Count when.
And they were like, we can't call it Body Count. That's too violent. I'm like, it's the fucking Predator.
Yeah, well, it may have been because of Ice-T's band.
No, I don't even know if that happened. It was.
I remember the name changed pretty quick. The
name changed several times because there was something else before that. I wish I could find it.
Free for All was the other one.
Free for All. That's right. Free for All, because it was this. Had so many too many moving parts. I was looking at the comic before this, and I'm like, wow, I would have edited this down, but whatever. But yeah, it was Free for All, and it was Body Count. I was like, Body Count, yeah, that's tough. That sounds good. Yeah, Body Count.
Body Count would have been good. Bad Blood though suggests the feral Predator.
Okay, it's
fine. It's fine.
It's okay, but Body Count is because it's a violent book. I was
incredibly violent book.
I forgot how much
we can talk a little bit about violence as a sidebar, because at the time my college was right in MacArthur Park in downtown LA and in the Rampart district. And in LA at the time, that neighborhood had the highest murder rate in the nation.
Well, that's because of Predator 2.
Basically. And during the period I was working on Predator, I was living in, and I was an RA in the dorm to pay my bills for school and working on the book at the same time. And we, tons of violence right out of the front, gunfire in the park, drug deals, rival gangs, like you name it. And then the LA riots and fires towards the senior year side. So there was a lot of tumult, and LA also was dealing with Rodney King and the police violence, and just violence was everywhere. And Predator was so violent, and I liked gory movies and violent stuff, but it did rattle me, I think, over time. If you look at that book, you'll see a visual sort of dissolution as things get more and more hectic and more gnarly. And I was trying something conceptually in the panel arrangements and patterns and stuff to suggest that as the violence intensified, the order of the panels would break down. And I was in art school. What the fuck, It's
funny. One of the things about violence, I realize we got to get to the questions, but I'm sorry, nobody's asked about. I was telling Derek, I have never done an interview that I can remember about this book. Maybe when it came out, but who can remember? It's a long time ago, 30-something years ago. I remember having not an argument with Chris Warner. I mean, Chris, our editor and inker and artist on the first Predator comic from Dark Horse, Chris completely understood where I was coming from, but we couldn't use any cursing in the book. And I just thought that was amazing because, one, they're R-rated movies. They're extremely violent. And two, I remember this exactly what I said. I said, if I walk into an open, an open place in the woods, and I see an alien, and my friend's head is hanging over his balls as a trophy, I'm not going to say, "Oh dear Lord," or "Oh my God." I'm going to be like, "Mother." I didn't. I know the F-bomb was not in play, but I was like, "Son of a bitch!" You're going to react like a human. And we had to. I was flipping through the book, and I was seeing all the ways that I worked around not being able to curse. They're clunky. I would not write the book that way now, but yeah,
Well, that book is not a subtle book.
it's not a subtle book at all. I'm like, come on, it's Predator.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
If the movie can play in your state, then the comic. But there was still a lot of problems with comics being seen as kid stuff back then. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
Well, yeah, it's one of the things we mentioned when we did a retrospective podcast on the comic a few years back, is just how deliciously gory the whole thing was. And some of those panels were just absolutely ridiculous in terms of the stuff being shown on there.
It was a lot of it was in the script, and a lot of it was Derek going off. I mean, I wanted to do as much body damage to the characters. I didn't want to play. We didn't have a budget like a movie does. We didn't have to keep going to Stan Winston and Associates and said, no, we want that head moving still while it's on the double spikes. I mean, we tried to come up with different weapons. But I really wanted to up. It was called body count. I was taking a lot of nods from movies that were coming out, around then, or movies that I liked, RoboCop, Terminator. I mean, it's a lot of violence. I mean, yeah, exactly. We're not going to. Subtlety is not for Predator movies, especially for a comic, because we can't do the heat vision the way that it looks on film. We can't show the gore or the action the way it looks on film. So, you got to ramp it up and make it as visual, and interesting. I kept the fans in mind. I just felt that, let's go whole hog. Let's not just have one guy versus a Predator, which is what I think a lot of the first comic was. And Big Game was kind of like a cat and mouse thing. Once after John nuked the army base, it really brought it down to a one-on-one. And I was like, we've already seen that. Why don't we just go nuts? So I mean, I brought in, I think, too much stuff to the script. There's too many characters. There's too many moving parts. But I wanted to pull it in a lot of different directions, so it was just not what you've seen before. Yeah, I guess. And then when Derek got a hold of it, like he was saying before, he turned it up to 11.
It leads to 14.
We blow a lot of people up. It's nasty.
I think I did a lot of irreparable damage to my career, is what I think I did.
Really?
At least in comics, I think people were. I struggled. I got some gigs after, but it wasn't like, oh my God, you nailed it. I think anyway. I have my own reflections and anxieties and.
Well, I think way back we talk about one of the things that when I was writing it, the writing was on the wall that the industry was starting to go through a downturn.
Yeah.
And I realized this. I think that Big Game sold about 250,000 copies of the first issue or so, and I think Bad Blood sputtered out at around 30 something, which shows you.
Yeah, the first issue sold better than that.
Yeah.
Just a little numerical or timetable fact for you guys, in case you didn't know. Bad Blood took 14 months to complete. I penciled 140 pages, 5 painted covers, and I think 140 or 120. 140 or 120, something.
I think the books were 24 pages back then. I don't know.
Well, there was a 3-part prologue that was 24, and then 5.
That was 24, yeah.
Was 80, 90.
I think it was 24 per issue, yeah.
100. Yeah. So it was 120 pages, 14 months, 5 painted covers as well. So it took a while.
Would you say deadlines are probably tighter these days with comics, or?
I don't know. I haven't drawn a comic for with a deadline in a while, so I don't know if the deadline thing has shifted. I never was late. I was on time.
Yeah. Well, we had a weird schedule because the first issue was in Dark Horse Comics. It was broken into. So instead of a 5-month schedule, it was a 7-month schedule.
Yeah.
So that's why it also took longer, because it was 8, 8, 8,
And then
and the 424-page issues. Yeah. And I think you did get to do a Dark Horse Comics cover.
yes, that was so that cover,
5, yeah.
the cover of Dark Horse Comics number 10 or 12, I can't remember the exact number, the first issue with Bad Blood. I had done that painting just for myself after I'd gotten hired.
It's number 12.
Yeah, that cover.
Oh, nice.
It's a nice one too, yeah.
I painted it at the front desk of my dormitory because I was working, and I did the drawing layout took about 10 or 12 hours, and then I painted it. And I had been just kind of doing it as a excitement piece because I'd gotten hired, and I'd been doing some visual development to design the Predators and their helms and armor and stuff. Did that painting, and Randy Stradley liked it so much, he's like, we're going to use this as the cover. And then they made a deal for me to paint all the covers.
It's funny because the script wasn't fully done at that point.
Yeah.
And I never noticed. Yeah, you've got 2 Predators that are just basic designs.
Yeah, it does have the Predator skull.
I noticed that. Yeah, yeah.
And tattoo designs had started to happen. So I'd done drawings to sort of nail down who what the design distinction might be. I hadn't gotten to the helmets yet, though.
And speaking of Predator designs, I mean, you're both artists. Derek, you're also a creature designer. So naturally, we have to ask you about your favorite Predator designs. You know, if they're not your own in this comic, do you have any favorite design choices from any of the films or any of the other expanded media? Let's start with you, Derek.
Well, I mean, obviously, film one was iconic just because it was, you know, talk about one design choice with those mandibles opening that has been mimicked and mirrored and aped a million ways to Sunday. And it's like, in a way, how Giger gets aped so much. That, to me, points to something iconic. And, you know, arguably, you could say the Predator creature design isn't that imaginative. I mean, it's a guy in a suit. It's a cool suit. But it's in that facial stuff that I think the design took off. I like the Predator 2 design. It was a little bit more carapace. I don't think it had as much personality as Predator 1, even though Kevin Peter Hall plays them both really well. And you can kind of feel, I remember seeing Predator 2 when the other Predators show up at the very end, and they clearly used a Predator 1 cast for one of the older guys. And they're like, oh yeah, there's the Predator I remember and love, you know? Beyond that, on all the subsequent Predator, Alien Predator stuff, I can't think of too many design choices that got me excited. I was intrigued with the sort of recent one, the Prey Predator, that skull helm thing. I thought was cool. I bumped on the facial design and anatomy though, because it felt like it was almost another species, and my design brain was like, okay, well, wait, is this like is that 100,000 years of evolution or what, you know? But in terms of like how I applied my design brain to Bad Blood specifically, beyond some of those components like the bones and the Enforcer helmet, which I designed, the big element of the original Preacher design in Predator that I didn't think got utilized is the feet. So I'd gotten a vinyl cast Chris Warner helped me get from Japan to have as reference. And the foot of the Predator has like a primate. It has a thumb on it with a claw. And I thought, boy, these are arboreal tree creatures that run around and climb around. Wouldn't it be cool to exploit that? And maybe the feral Predator, you know, it clings to things. It uses its feet to eviscerate like a bird of prey. And I can't remember, Evan, if you'd written it in the script or if I was pitching the idea, but I remember, I think it's in issue 2, doing a thing where the Predator uses its foot to eviscerate a guy. But if you look in that comic throughout, I leaned into the feet a lot, which is a weird, I don't know what that says about me, but there's something
you can
about
get
this.
a Predator only fans going.
Yeah, right.
For me, this is going to sound weird, but I have less contact. I haven't seen as many of the films. Like I haven't seen Prey or the Shane Black. I don't even know the names of them. It just seems
Shane Black one certainly owes a debt to our Predator. I'll tell you that.
Well, this is weird. I'd almost defer to Aaron and Adam about this because I haven't seen it. But you, Derek, you were telling me that there's elements in the. But I watched. Well, we can get into that later because I watched the Alien versus Predator films only recently, like a year ago, and one of them ends. I just felt like, wow, this is so much like the end of Bad Blood of Bad Blood. You know, it just there was so many. And now they're allowed. I'm not saying that they did this, but I mean, you're allowed to take anything that's owned by the franchise and just use it for free.
Yeah.
And you know, so I mean, this is just, you know, weird, but I mean, I'm watching it, and I think it was the first one. It ended, you know, with the ship coming down. I think that there were. This woman was the last. I can't remember how it ended, but I just remember going afterwards. I was like, that really seems similar to how we ended Bad Blood. But for me, it's gonna sound funny for me, but my favorite designs are the ones that Derek did for the comic. Because I'm not a big fan of the Predator design, and that's not just because they tore apart the creature design from Monster Squad to make it, and I love the Monster Squad creature. But ever since I was a little kid, I hated when you'd hear Ray Harryhausen would tear apart an armature to make it. He tore apart the Ymir to make the Cyclops, and I was like, "Fuck this!" You know, I'm 10 years old. Cyclops fucking sucks. And I hated the idea that it didn't exist anymore because that's fan brain. You get old, turn into a baby. But in Ultraman, they tore apart the Baragon suit to make many different creatures for Ultraman, which drove me nuts because I love Baragon. But anyway, yeah, they tore apart the creature suit from Monster Squad that Stan Winston did to make the Predator. But I mean, to me, the Predator always looked like this bizarre mix of a cyborg and Tarzan. It's just like, why is he wearing a fishing net? The guy's in a spaceship. It's like a half-naked dude driving the Enterprise. It just never sat well with me. But that's my aesthetic. But I really liked.
The biggest problem I have with that fishnet is just that it was a pain in the ass to draw.
It's gonna tear on every. Why put some clothes on, for fuck's sake?
Some hot takes coming from the writer of one of the most influential Predator comics.
I'm sorry. What did I do?
I said some hot takes coming from.
It's not a big. Everybody has their likes and dislikes. It's just aesthetically, to me, he looked like such a jumble of designs, you know. And when he took
a very difficult design to wrangle and drawing too, because it's so detail intensive.
I hated it
because drawing a Predator was fairly insanity making, because you had an anatomical form, then there were all these sort of dots or spotted pattern in the skin, then the crossing of all the netting, then the armor, and
the detailed weaponry, and then you get the dreads. The dreads are all detailed, and then you've got this head that just starts, you know, it's shit, and it's got a pussy inside of it. It's just all fucked up looking, you know. It's a really fucking weird design.
But I love drawing it. I didn't get tired of drawing it.
I hated it. Well, one of the problems I had on Bad Blood, besides the fact on Big Game, besides the fact that I was doing a shit job because I wasn't good enough in that style, was that I had no reference.
That was the hard part. The reference was the hard part.
I worked on that book in '91, and I was thrown in last minute. The reason I got the job was because somebody didn't do their.
If you'd gotten that statue that Chris Warner was using, you would have been in better shape.
Yeah, well, nobody would send me pictures of it. I had nothing. I was scrabbling for all of the reference was difficult. In fact, I had to draw this in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Apparently, there's this lava flow area that is the ending of the comic. And John Arcudi had no reference. He gave me some military reference for the arm. That's why some of my stronger stuff in there is the equipment. I did a fairly decent job on the choppers and the tanks. My people in anatomy was not very good, but my Predator was just a mess because I was mostly using Chris Warner's work from the first book. Yeah. I had nothing.
It's all pre-internet. If I was drawing Bad Blood even 5 or 6 years after I did, and the Google images and those kinds of things were starting to be available, it would have had a different look in some places, because there was just certain reference. It wasn't easy to get reference of the Pine Barrens, for example. So you'll notice my workaround, which is telling because I'm a West Coast kid, a lot of the forests and trees and plant life that I drew into Bad Blood are like West Coast forest.
It works fine.
Nothing to do with the Pine Barrens at all.
It works fine because the Pine Barrens are a lot of the Pine Barrens.
It can be a lot of things.
I think in fact the Pine Barrens might be where, if we want to talk about the Pine Barrens, might be where my story started. Location hit first.
Yeah.
But I don't remember which high concept it was. It was you need a place to play, that other people will not bother you. So you know what I mean? Thinking movie wise, even though it's a comic, you don't want to bring in if you want to do the city, you're gonna go crazy. There's gonna be a lot of, like in Predator 2, there's gonna be a lot more real life repercussions than in Predator 1, where it's in a jungle, everyone's dead a mile away, everybody got killed, and nobody can bother. You're working in a sandbox. So I wanted to give the book a sandbox, but the high concept was, a serial killer of predators. I just thought that was, interesting enough to work on. And then a cop. I don't think we called him the enforcer. We called him a cop.
Yeah, I think the enforcer came from NECA.
Which is a great. I like it a lot. I wish
good name. Yeah, and he was just the.
But at the same time, your predators don't sit down and go, "Oh shit, I got an enforcer on my trail." It was really hard. One of the things that sucks about writing Predator, at least back then, before you had more background, was that you didn't have exposition coming easily. Like the first Predator, you get it. He lands. He's here for the weekend. He's gonna cut some things down. He's taking trophies. Blah blah blah. A couple of times he spits out some regurgitated dialogue to let you know what he's sort of thinking, or just to give him some Freddy Krueger dialogue or something like that to be, hot shit. But, he doesn't sit down and go, here's why I'm here. Here's our code of ethics that I'm breaking, the one in Bad Blood. I had to use the spaceship and a few other things. We were able to show some things in the opening, like the ship that he was being chased by the cops. So we were trying to figure out, without being able to put too much detail into it, because 20th Century Fox would probably say, don't write for us, write our stuff, but don't write, don't make decisions for us. Was that there's a society, that there's, I guess it came out after Predator 2, but I hadn't seen Predator 2.
It came out after Predator 2.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Predator 2 until years later. But it was like, what's the society like? I mean, obviously he's broken code, and he's literally feeding on his own people. So trying to figure out in silence, without being able to have the aliens, the alien is like this too, because they were just like cockroaches in Aliens. Everybody talked about them, but they didn't know anything about the predators. In the book, we show that the CIA had figured some things out, because that's what they do.
A lot of that had to be conveyed visually, and having contrast between the feral predator and the
right.
What does the internet call our predator? I know is it feral predator? What's his class?
It's the Bad Blood. He's just the
Bad Blood
predator. Yeah, Bad Blood predator. Although there's a name, I wish I knew it. I wish I looked it up, because there's a name. Like I said, there's a descriptor,
a category of it.
For
the cannibal predator.
There's a descriptor for predators that are not honorable.
The code.
I think it's kind of born from his name. They're just called Bad Bloods, right, Aaron?
That's wild.
So there you go. You started a mythology, Evan.
I wasn't kidding when I said, this series had a big impact on the lore of the franchise. That's going forward.
But I mean, obviously it's
cool to discover. It's
yeah.
Surreal.
22 years later, right?
30.
Oh God.
33. I got hired 33 years ago.
Senility.
It's one of
sorry.
It's one of the most interesting things I find about the comic is just the juxtaposition between the Enforcer and the Bad Blood. I mean, going beyond just what they're doing and one's after the other, but even their spaceships, like you said, like the Bad Blood spaceship is all rugged and really aggressive looking, and the Enforcers looks more like a sleeker Predator ship that we've kind of seen in some of the other comics, but still had a unique design. And the Enforcer's mask had these really cool angular spikes on him. But Predators would typically adorn themselves with bones and stuff. But with the Bad Blood, it was just taken so over the top. Like he had just like multiple heads and bones all over his body. So it was a really unique kind of difference of styles between.
I think that's why the designs I mean, I know the designs well because we worked together on this, but I really thought that the one of the reasons I really liked Derek's designs is that we took the feral one, the bad blood, and really pushed it. As just here's this guy. He drives around in a space, white van with the locks don't work. He traps people and eats them. He's a lunatic, and he's as feral as we can make him, as jungle oriented. Far. He's a butcher, and he doesn't rely on the technology that the enforcer does. And I just think the enforcer design is very cool.
Well,
I still have the piece of
artwork.
Oh,
look at that! You got a good one.
You sent me this one,
that's
which is just.
one.
I mean, it's just. I don't know if you can see it. It's really nice, and I like the fact that you can tell from the two designs what their personalities are. It's just a nice,
civilized.
Well, it's nice visual storytelling, and it says things about where they're coming from. Not to make too much of it, and I think they look really cool because one of them is just really cobbled up with his victims, his trophies. He's got trophies of his own kind. So Derek could go. This was in the script. I mean, we really went nuts on. He really lorded over his kills and his own people. He didn't care for his own. He's got the predator skull. And
was the predators? I'm trying to remember, Evan. Did you write the predator skull piece in, or did we workshop that?
I think so. I remember. I feel like that was part of the script, but I wish I could.
It's possible. Script, I don't have any copies.
It's on a hard drive, broken somewhere long ago.
But
I write very tight scripts, as you can remember. I mean, I really.
They were.
And
but just for design perspective, I don't want to take too much credit for inventing the enforcer design because here's how I attacked it. There were two films, Predator and Predator 2. And one of the things that I noticed in all of the sort of studies of the first film, and especially the photographic studies I did of Predator 2, was there was a distinction. Predator 1 armor does have a smoother, fairly more cohesive geometry, especially in the armor and in the shape of the helmet. Predator 2, a lot of the armor is more organic. It's flanged. It has spikes and points and things like that. And I sort of keyed on that contrast as I was approaching the Bad Blood Predator and the Enforcer. And the Enforcer, for all intents and purposes, has the similar armor configuration to the Predator from the original film. My major design contribution was the helmet. I wanted it to feel a little bit more like a samurai. And I loved how the samurai helmets had the sort of spokes. And so I just sort of extended from the cheeks and the jaws and the sort of prongs to give it a distinct look. But I really wanted to keep it smooth. And the colorist did a really great job of keeping it smooth. And it would fly in a spaceship that was more sophisticated and sleek. The Bad Blood Predator, I used essentially the armor configuration from Predator 2. But then I changed all of the bones and I did a spinal column, predator skull, the wrist spines, a tri-blade instead of two blades, the creature skulls on its kneecaps.
I was just noticing that. I wanted to talk about that because I don't think it's in the script that we.
That's not in the script. I think
those are not predator skulls, and they're
not. The key
nice
whole design was the predator one because you always wanted to feel a visual reminder that this thing was deadly to its own species. The other thing I designed to make my life harder was I designed a lot of tribal tattoos. So it's got tattoos on its head, on the chest. And so it's spots, it's tattoos, it's webbing, it's hanging bones. There was a lot of detail.
There's a lot going on.
But the Bad Blood ship, I designed that totally from nothing using the language of the Predator 2 armor to inform. So if you look at that ship design and look at Predator 2 armor, you can see they're in the same neighborhood.
It was very insectile, very organic.
Yes.
Kind of looking.
And I wanted like organic in contrast to sleek. And there had to just be a clear visual read. You had to be able to know which one was which, especially when Enforcer has his mask pulled off. But the contrast was really important.
the mask is not a small thing, though. I mean, when you think about how movie monsters or creatures are remembered or made iconic or
Yeah.
don't work,
Yeah.
I just really always thought that was a terrific take. I mean, it's an early take, and I just thought it was a terrific take on showing.
I'm proud of it, but I want to make sure that like that's the thing that I think makes that design come together unexpectedly. But if you took its head off, it's
But
essentially
if you look at the if you look at the NECA toys, I think both of them stand out really nicely.
yeah.
Even
They dialed into the contrast. They even put that guy's head on the
it's this, and it's the deputy's head, yeah, I think, which is just
deputy or it was the deputy or was it the
Or the paintball guy.
yeah. There's a lot of
A lot of
heads
heads on
everywhere.
his belt.
Heads everywhere.
I was looking through it and I saw he was just throwing pieces of bodies to fuck with the. I thought that was it's been done, but I thought it was okay.
It's funny, like you bring that up there, Evan, because that's a little thing that ended up making it into one of the other pieces of lore. One of the better other pieces of lore was a predator who used to lob heads at his remaining people just to fuck with them. Just a little bit of psychological warfare. So
I figured also he ran out of space. So I mean, there's dozens of people die in this thing, and one of the things I also wanted to show is like the panic and the incompetence when you're dealing with something you've never really dealt with before. So many people I noticed were getting shot by their own sides or were getting screwed over just in panic and chaos. It's like I don't know how many people died.
There was literally a panel, I think it might be issue 2, where it was a pile of bodies. And I remember it's almost a splasher. It's a big panel. I brought the camera up high so I could kind of cover it. And I had a bunch of my friends at school literally piled on each other in the courtyard.
Oh, nice. You're playing Guantanamo while the world
that
was burning.
pile of bodies
really
was
nice.
actually
Really?
Yeah.
That's dedication. I would never ask people to pile
be a
on.
very compelling pile of bodies.
It's a gross book. I mean, I tried this. We wiped out a paintball camp in the first.
I need to know where that came from because I'm an airsofter, not a
Right.
paintballer. Boo paintball.
sorry.
But as a a similar thing, I was like, this is fucking brilliant because so many of the comics and the stories and stuff like that, they base it in like a big epic conflict of World War One or Vietnam or stuff like that. And you went for a friggin' imitation combat.
I don't
Why
know
paintball?
Yeah, I don't know where the idea came from. I mean, again, pre-internet, so something may have stuck. I've never. I always thought it looked like fun, but I've never done it. I'm not super physical. I'm a cartoonist. We played like laser tag. I would fall down and kids would run all over me and start shooting me in my target. And that was in Jersey too. I don't know where the idea came from, but I remember liking the idea because I just thought it was funny that the Predator mistook this group of lawyers as badasses to go after. Like it's a parody of the first movie, I guess. It's the idea that he's just shooting up. The one scene I remember from that is I just like the scene where the guy's talking and he's smoking a cigarette and the Predator just beheads him and you don't see it for a panel. There's just a line across him and then he falls apart. I was just trying to ape movie effects and movie pacing. But it's the way I write, if you read any of my other, Beast of Burden or any of that stuff, I really try to fill out a comic. I like the boring parts to be interesting. Predator was probably the first thing I think I wrote. Predator Bad Blood, I think, was the first thing I wrote that wasn't milk and cheese or dork or comedy, satire or anything like that. That it was a adventure thing, and it was my first script, and I was very nervous. So it's overwritten. I was looking at it before, and I'd be like, take that out, take that. I would take out at least 30 to 40% of the dialogue if I could. But that first, we knew that we were doing a 24-page opener, and I wanted it to be different from the rest of the book, but have its own, have it be a piece of its own. So the setting of the Pine Barrens, I don't know where the idea came from, but having this paintball thing was perfect. I mean, it's just a bunch of guys running around who would not know what's happening and they'd be easily wiped out. But then, so that it wasn't a cakewalk, I had that chase where the predator is trailing the motorcycle. But it was also all used to set up the 4-issue miniseries, to bring us back to the beginning. I don't know. I just thought it was just a joke, killing off a bunch of lawyers from a predator. It was just, enjoyable. I also,
What's the phrase? Kill all the lawyers?
I think, hang the lawyers with I forget exactly how it goes. The scene that I also liked was using the Gatling type gun I forget what movie I've seen.
He uses the Gatling gun.
Was that in the first movie?
It was in the first Predator.
So I turned that into a paintball gun, and years later I saw a Japanese ad, and they made the Predator paintball gun.
Oh my god!
They were making real paintball guns. I don't think it had anything to do with Predator, but they really had a gun that would shoot.
I responded well to that idea because it reminded me of the H.P. Lovecraft Dunwich Horror, and it reminded me of the episode Johnny Quest, both of which use the same idea where there's an invisible creature and they use paint.
The Dunwich Horror, they used this spray.
And then the Johnny Quest episode's cool too. They do the similar.
I don't know that, but yeah, while working on it, I was like, wait, this is a great way to show to have the Predator's invisible field get busted.
Yeah. Because
I didn't want to do that. It's a pain in the ass to draw for anybody.
It was.
It's fakey looking in the comic. It just doesn't look great in the comic, and it's an unfair advantage. I was just like, hey, the Gatling gun can shoot so much liquid paint. One, we get to see this big bloody predator, which I thought was a nice movie moment, nice reveal. And two, it fucks up his equipment, so he's at a little bit of a disadvantage and has to deal with everything. I
think we got the paint off of him pretty quickly by issue 1.
He probably was rolling in the grass or some shit like that. Yeah, you don't want. It's obnoxious to have a character running around covered in stuff to have to draw that. It's a movie thing. Yes. It would have been cool to watch him if we had room. We could have shown him in a creek or something, wiping it off, getting it wiped off, and being.
Because everybody wants to see a predator take a bath. That's a good.
I guarantee you, there is a corner of online fandom that would have got a thrill out of that. Yeah, I have the exact same reaction there, Derek.
So we're not sure how closely you both follow the franchise now, but the next theatrical entry for the Predator franchise is Predator Badlands, a film that features the Predators as the protagonist, or at least a Predator as the protagonist. The twist seemed to be a response to criticism over the last film, Prey, with some fans saying we're bored of the Predators always being defeated. So how do you guys, and this is yet another film with Predator on Predator conflict as well. So how do you guys feel about humanizing the Predators or fans actively wanting them to succeed? Evan, let's start with you. You were saying you think the Predators are a bit too one note. Do you think this sort of idea might help alleviate that?
Well, it makes perfect sense. I mean, where else can you go with these things? I mean, it reminds me a lot of the Klingons in Star Trek, which I was a huge fan of as a kid, the old series. And you'd see the Klingon subculture take off. They wanted to know more about these characters, not just have them be stock aliens. The Predators, where else are you going to go with them? You're just going to have them constantly just showing up as a mercenary force or as a hunter. That's a dead end. It makes perfect sense that you would be wanting to see protagonists. One, the fandom is obviously looking forward to that. Two, again, in wrestling terms, you don't want your big villain to constantly lose. You got to put the belts on the Predator at some point, right? So that they look tough, so that they come into their own. I mean, to have humans constantly squeak out a victory makes no fucking sense. I mean, in some ways, they should have been the protagonists of Alien versus Predator. But
that's where I thought they were going to go, because the original comic was kind of like that.
But
right?
You could tell that they had to put people in it. You have to have unmasked characters running the show. Maybe they could have tried that in the second movie, because none of the characters in either movie are really interesting at all. No. It was just, why not have a good Predator in one of those things? Why not have the Predators be the good guys in the second one and let them run the show? Bad cop, good Predator, or something like that would have been more interesting.
Terminator 2 proved it.
Or something. I mean, maybe let them learn English at some point. They fucking are downloading the language every time they show up in a movie. What do they have? Betamaxes in their What the fuck? America has the Earth has better equipment than they do, and they fly interstellar ships. Have them learn English and have one Predator actually, like, buddy movie up with an action star, and have them, do Enemy Mine or whatever the fuck that was, or Alien Nation or whatever the fuck that was. I haven't seen Enemy Mine, but that would make
Enemy Mine.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
It's
Humanizing
the Pacific in space.
Yeah, it's what's that movie with
Hell in the Pacific.
No, Tony yes, I know what you're talking about, but there's an earlier one, the two guys who escape on a chain gang.
The
Defiant Ones.
Yeah, Defiant Ones.
Sidney Poitier and Tony,
Tony Curtis.
Tony Curtis. But yeah, I mean, everybody likes the opposites. The buddy film has, one guy, he's a cop, he's an alien, they're detectives.
I think it's a fair point, like from a story standpoint and from a world building standpoint, having some dimension is appealing. I look at, like, thinking in terms of Bad Blood, the enforcer predator must come from a sort of a different code of conduct, a different moral position within the culture. So if this new film is sort of like, what does enforcer training look like, or what is it, I can get on board with it. I've watched all the stuff that they've made and keep an eye on it. Partly, like Star Wars stuff, I can't really escape it once I've spent years of my life being immersed, and I'm always curious what they're gonna tap into. I'm open-minded to the new one, although I can't say I loved the design choices in the teaser. I don't know if it was temp shots. I'm not sure. I enjoyed Badlands more than I expected to. Again, it echoed that comic book project we never got off the ground, which
you mean Prey? Sorry,
Prey. Sorry,
yeah.
My bad. And I'll watch Killer of Killers, which again feels like Predator's past. But it'll be interesting to see if a Predator protagonist can carry the film or get the audience on board.
I think it can, if it's anything can. Obviously, have more movie project bomb than I would, or get elevated by the writing and the design. 30 years of people buying toys of monsters, aliens, robots. I mean, we consider these characters. I mean, they'll watch Yoda for an hour, or that whatever that baby Yoda thing is, or whatever. And Boba Fett, who has does he take his mask off in that show?
All the time.
But I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like we're used to anything being a protagonist. Wally, you worked on Wally. There's no
Wally's not a murderer.
What I'm saying is there's no human in it. We can watch things that have no humans in it and get through it all right. I think that at a certain point, yeah, you're beating the Predator as hunter thing to death. And they've started doing Predators showing up at different times, which they did a lot in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
I think Predators have shown up in the World War II. I mean, I haven't read a lot of them. I don't remember them very well. But I think they started doing Predators in different times. We've been showing, and I think in Alien versus Predator or one of those things that, did they create the aliens or something crazy? They've been around forever. Who the fuck knows? You can do anything as long as it's good. And if a Predator was dealing with an Earth movie or modern times, there's no reason why a Predator couldn't have a limited English vocabulary when necessary.
Sure.
There's no reason why you couldn't have, put subtitles under the goddamn thing. I don't care if people hate them. Have the goddamn thing be subtitled, or just say, hey, I don't know, as long as the story is good, you'll ride with the Predator as a character. But to me, if I'm not the person they come to, obviously, but if I was to make a decision, look, we want to have a plan for the Predators for not just 1 year, but 10 years, maybe 20. We want ease it in with a story that takes place where you do have humans, let's say, and let's say we have a sandbox somewhere on Earth, so that doesn't get too crazy out of hand. But we have a Predator that, for whatever reasons, has to work with people or work with a person, and communicates with it, and ease it into, we're going to have Predators as main characters or whatever. I don't. They'll see what happens. I mean, what is Badlands about? Have they released anything?
So it's a young Predator who's been kind of exiled from his clan, I believe.
Team Predator.
Maybe.
Hi, everybody. I'm
Team
Predator,
babies. But he's out to redeem himself and prove himself with a hunt on this very dangerous world. But yeah, it's interesting. They are actually, I think they have the guy who helped develop the Na'vi language for Avatar is developing the language for this film. So I imagine there will be some subtitles. And we have seen predators speak outside of clicks in some of the films, like The Predator had it. Some of the games have had it. It
Subtitles
seems
in the Predator, yeah.
It seems like they've always been a little nervous to have the Predator speak English, which I don't know why. Like, we were consulting on a project once and they were very nervous about that. But I'm like, the
It doesn't
Predator
make
speaks
sense.
English in Predator 2. Like,
You could just have it click and have a translator.
Yeah, it's a fucking space. It's obviously a stratified culture from a planet that has lasers and all this technology, and they can't adapt to any world that they go to. If they're going to shoot you in the back, I would think they'd also want to learn your language. I mean, they're not, they don't worry about the sanctity of the Earth language, for fuck's sake. I mean, maybe they think it'll look silly or whatever. I mean, slap an arm, make them be able to do it when they have a helmet on. That way you don't have to see all the weird movement. Because to be honest, I don't know how the hell they would. I mean, do they only do it when they have a helmet on?
In Predator 2, he spoke English words. Two of them spoke English
End of
words
one as well.
without a helmet on.
What is the big deal? What, we're going to break the mystique of the? I mean, give the writers and.
Yeah, I don't know how Predator lore has become sacrosanct. I think it's a little looser than.
I mean, just let fucking talk if you're gonna do an Earth film.
Well,
Sure.
another aspect too, like you mentioned a little critically earlier, is the vocal mimicry. We feel like sometimes it's underused, and it's funny because we thought it was used really well in your comic as well. You made great use of it. So, but give us a bit more about how you feel about that element, the vocal mimicry, and why it might not appeal to other creatives as much.
It's a gimmick. I mean, I can understand people not liking it because it really doesn't serve much of a purpose. It serves a cool factor. Every once in a while, it's really basically you're allowing the Predator, you're nodding at the audience because the Predator somehow picks the exact ironic thing to say.
Yeah, I don't know, you guys. I love the mimicry stuff in Predator 1 and Predator 2.
I don't mind it.
It's very entertaining.
It's entertaining.
Candy in the graveyard in Predator 2 is like one of my favorite moments. Maybe it's a little silly, but I think
it's silly, but I agree. I think you could chalk it up to one. It's a screenwriting Hollywood bit of business,
and it's a little unsettling too.
You're basically letting him Schwarzenegger every once in a while.
Yeah, it's something about a broken mimicry and the broken pieces of it. I find is actually a little unsettling, even though it's
creepy. Well, it's got that demonic possession trope.
Yeah,
where the dead character comes back and is saying things that the character said while alive.
Yes.
It's a gimmick. Things don't have to be fucking real and work into a fan puzzle where everything makes sense. He's just being, if nothing else, it could be a hunter that's being sarcastic before he takes his shot.
It's like flavor text out loud.
Yeah,
it's a great way to establish some characterization for them as well. I think
it lets them. It allows you to not look at them as an animal with guns.
Yeah.
It does help ascertain the fact that remember this is a cultured murderer who comes down here for kicks, and you know what I mean. He's on his weekend vacation to grab some trophies to show his friends, and they're coming back from other planets, I assume, doing the same thing. And they get together and they drink Predator grog, and they.
You remember the tagline for the second film, Evan? I don't know if you. It was he's in town with a few days to kill.
Right. That's it. Yeah.
It's funny because a lot of the things you're saying, Evan, are things I take the piss out of a little bit when it comes to the Predator characterization.
Yeah.
I mean, you're taking the piss a little bit more critically than I do. I'm poking fun at it, but it's funny to hear you say these things.
We can look through the comic, and I would take the piss out of my writing the whole way through, because there's a lot of stuff in here where I was trying to sound cool, or I was trying to mimic film stuff. I mean, there's cliches. I mean, it's films. The writer's brain, I think, picks apart things pretty heavily, and the fan brain picks it apart. And I've got both, so yeah, I'm critical of stuff.
Horrible combination.
It keeps me up at night, right? It's terrible. It's
I appreciate that critical thinking, Evan, but I also remember throughout the whole process of drawing this book, when I would call you on or have questions or bring up things or ideas around the script, you were always very flexible and accommodating. I don't recall anything I really ran into as far as resistance, other than some of the Chris Warner edits around the design of the guy in the woods and taking out some of the sort of indie goth references that I was peppering in sets. But generally, I found myself
we were pretty free.
Yeah, we were pretty free, and I didn't feel like you were unyielding about adjustments or tweaks.
I write full script. I've always written full script. I did take screenwriting courses at NYU. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. It was just I realized I liked writing more than I liked talking. I didn't want to take classes about films that I could go home and watch and read books about. Why am I spending my parents' money to listen to a guy talk about Alfred Hitchcock when I could do that for free and take different classes like psychology and whatnot that I could use for my writing? And eventually I learned I didn't want to make films. I wanted to make comics because I can't work with film people. They drive me up a fucking wall. Nothing personal, Derek. Thanks
a lot.
Well, no, I don't consider you a film person. I'm talking about the people who shit on everyone down by,
No, I get you.
I don't like magic in films. We're not going to have magic here. We need a robot. We need somebody to skateboard. That kind of bullshit. But I write very tight scripts, and especially early on, like when I was working with Derek, and then later with Jill and the Mask series that I did. When you don't know who you're writing for, you want to make sure you have every person. I want every Lego brick that I need to be in place.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes to me with a question, or they want to do something different, I'm like, as long as it tells a story. Yeah. I don't want to dictate. The script dictates a lot, but I don't want to dictate the thought processes of the artist. So I usually tell them, if you have ideas, please go ahead. You don't have to have all 40 people in this shot, obviously, but I'm going to write out everything as I see it. And then the artist gets to make decisions also.
And as a comic book artist starting in his career, I was really appreciative of having a robust and full script, because it definitely helped me navigate things. I'd done the issue of Monster for Dark Horse as a kind of I landed that gig after they hired me for Predator, but before I was technically supposed to start. And Kelly Jones had dropped out, so I did a 14-pager, and that was a fairly conventional script. I feel like Evan's script was a little fuller, but across the years, having worked, on different scripts at different levels of finish, both in comics and in feature film and animation, it's always interesting. Sometimes when you have too much room, it can be more petrifying than having a really full, robust. I remember there was a lot of specificity around, like, just the t-shirts, for example. I remember, what was the girl character's name, the main character?
Mandy.
I remember you'd written specifically in the script that she had a Dead Kennedys logo on her shirt. But I added the Nine Inch Nails logo for Robert's character, but that wasn't written. There were little things, sometimes very specific things.
Well, it's invisible writing. I mean, either the artist or the writer does it, but I mean, the locations, the people's houses, what they wear, their hair, it all. I mean, obviously, it all feeds into what the viewer makes of the character. Is the character sloppy? Is the character a neat freak? Is the character uptight about things? Is it always fidgeting? You can't do some of that stuff in comics because you don't have motion.
And I can't quite remember if you got into specifics around ethnicity or physical appearance, but he
was Korean American. He was African
American.
I wanted to pepper the cast up with different people.
And it was great. And what I did from Evan's script is I actually cast models from friends of mine in art school, and I used I had pals help me do pose and do life drawings as the baseline for most of the figurative work across the whole book. There are models underneath, even some of the Predator poses and gestures. Fun fact, my friend Wayne, who was the model for Robert, he also did the gesture work for me for both Predators, and a lot of the panels, because he was really he was a bodybuilder guy, and he had very defined muscle tone and great proportion, super energetic, great character, and on board with like collaborating on the process. So he would do gestures, and I would have sessions with different different primaries, and then pretty much the 4 or 5 key primary people who I leaned on and used a lot of their time, I gave them each original painted covers as gifts at the end.
Holy shit! That's
one guy died, so I kept my cover for 2. But you know what? Ooh, that's a creepy fact. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah.
The number of people I used as models in that book are dead.
Holy shit! A cursed script, a cursed comic. I could use this for.
John, the main guy, was my roommate. He
terrible.
died. One of the lawyers died. The guy who Chris changed into the mustache died.
What anyway, like Dirty Harry of comic book artists? Like nobody should pose for you.
I don't know what I did.
Well, that sucks, but I mean, you can see why your dedication is. Your Predator looks so much better than my sad little.
Well, I appreciate that.
Halloween costume.
All this was just to go back to the thing of how valuable it is that Evan's script was so specific around some of those things, because that gave me a stepping stone to be like, okay, I want this to feel inclusive and representational.
Yeah.
I can't invent Asian woman from my brain. I can't invent African American guy from my brain. I can't invent corporate schlub from my brain. So leaning on the people I was with in my life really helped bring something to that book that I don't think it would have had if I just.
Well, if you base a character in your script on somebody that you know, you have an anchor.
Yes.
You have a skeleton to build.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you're going to write them as that person.
Yes.
But when you have somebody in mind, like, when I was working on Eltingville for the pilot, I had some new characters designed for it, and some of them were old customers that started as the Petri dish to build the character out of. And when you're drawing, it's the same thing. You have a starting point that allowed an anchor.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to remember, like, I was having mega imposter syndrome at the time. I was 20 when I got hired on that job.
Here, man. I had
not having drawn comics before, not being on a schedule before. Even though I had a degree of confidence, I was also terrified that I was going to fuck up the book.
Same here.
And I felt this sudden, like, weird collision of confidence and fear, because on the one hand, my Predators were strong, and I'd impressed Chris Warner, and I'd gotten the job because I could handle drawing the Predator in a way that was exciting. On the other hand, I wasn't super great at drawing people and ordinary things and motorcycles.
You were starting out, man.
Exactly. But at that level, it's like, okay, I was in art school, so I'm learning, I'm studying, I'm doing life drawing, I'm doing all the stuff to try and get better. But one of the things that really helped me sort of keep a lifeline on my sanity was having the key characters be real people. It also super helped with continuity. So when I was drawing any of these characters late in the story, hundreds of panels later, they still looked like the same people. There was a consistency. And I think that, I don't know how many other comic book artists were. I mean, my life drawing thing was like my life raft on that job. I don't know if I would have gotten through it without that.
It's funny because you see the at Helioscope, the comics studio, where it's not a studio that they all work on one project. It's a studio where everybody comes in and has space. In Portland, they're always posting their reference photos of each other. So you'll see Steve Lieber's doing this, and Jeff Parker's, everybody's acting up like the old EC comics, the Flegel gang, Al Williamson, Frazetta.
Yeah.
They were always taking pictures of each other, running around on rooftops with guns.
Yeah. I think I told you, Evan, I found a stack of Polaroids.
Yes.
I would have the guys, for some of the secondary characters who I didn't have the commitment to sit with me for an hour to do gesture drawings and stuff.
The red shirts.
I would do Polaroids, and we would just have some fucking shitty stick as the gun and a backpack, but a little. And again, we didn't have the internet. It was like all the reference had to be found.
It's funny that you talk about imposter syndrome, because reminded me of something that happened where I had worked on the first. It was a fluke that I got Predator big game, and despite my not being happy with it, and a lot of people having issues with my artwork, which I agree with. Because you real quick, you fuck up in public when independent film, your first 45s, your early acting, your first comics, you're learning in public, and you're thrown out there if you get the job, and it's tough. Early work always look, like you tell me, 10,000 bad drawings, 10,000 bad sentences, bad ideas. Um, when I so yeah, I mean, I was terrified of writing this, and I actually had a really tough time writing it. I was like having a breakdown at one point. I remember, because I was not sure what I was doing was made sense, and that I didn't know how to connect some scenes, and I felt like I was out of my depth. When I first pitched that I had a Predator idea, I pitched it not to Chris Warner, but to Diana Schutz. Diana hired me on Big Game, and at one point on the phone, I said, "I have an idea for a Predator story. Would you be interested in hearing it?" And she said to me, I still remember this because it hurt me a little bit. She stopped, and then she said, "Evan, it can't be funny. We can't do a funny Predator." And I was like, "It's not, I can do others." And I was like pitching. I was like, ever since that happened, I was like, shit, I have to show that I can do something other than just have slapstick violence. And although this, I guess a lot of it is slapstick violence in a way, because
there's a bit of humor in Bad Blood. There's a sense of humor
well,
there.
the violence I like to do in comics, which is sometimes hard because it's not a moving image, is very Hong Kong cinema of action, reaction, cause and effect. So somebody shoots a high-tech taser with cables into them and misses, and then hits their friend, and the Predator grabs. Lots of different things keep happening. One of the characters dies because there's a fuck up, and I think he gets netted. I like to have lots of moving parts and lots of things happening all at once. Sometimes it doesn't work, and this was my first attempt. So there's places where I think I overdid it, no matter what Derek did, it was going to be busy and a little weird. But you learn from that. But Chris liked the idea. I think he eventually became an editor at Dark Horse, and we were talking at a convention or something. I don't know. But I knew Chris from San Diego again. Something, we had some drinks together quite a few times, and he heard me out, and he liked the pitch. But yeah, Imposter Syndrome was tough, I guess, on both of us. I thought it was a proving ground for me, the same way that it was
definitely a proving ground. I think back on my career about to jobs where I really learned something or went through the ringer, and there are no jobs I went through that were the level of ringer that Bad Blood was. Partly because I was so young, and it was I had no. I've been on some hard shows. I've worked on projects on movies for multiple years at a time, but Bad Blood was 14 months, and it was also, beyond all the upheaval, there was I had 4 different inkers. Chris was Chris was our editor, and he fired the first inker who did the prologue and then inked issues 1 and 2, which was great. He did the best with my pencil.
His inks over your pencils was.
And my pencils, I think, drove him nuts, and he quit.
I think so.
He quit the job.
He stopped editing the book.
He bailed on editing after.
I don't know what happened.
And he bailed. I think my shit was getting too crazy.
But he still could have edited
the. He could have edited it. He
was very involved.
Helpful. But he
very
bailed
involved in the early stages of the script, of throwing ideas out and asking me to. So he liked the story a lot.
And I don't even remember who edited us on the home stretch, but I got a third inker for issues 3 and part of 4. And he was struggling, and eventually I inked myself by the end. Yeah. And then all the subsequent books I did for Dark Horse and other comics, I just inked myself.
Dark Horse in the 90s, especially the early to mid 90s, was at one point they asked Sarah they asked us to move out there. Sarah would join as an editor. She met with probably Diana, I think, and they were going to allow her to keep doing Action Girl as a side project. They were going to carve out in the contract that she could do that. and we talked it over, and she was right. Basically, Dark Horse at the time was going through people like a predator.
Mhm.
They were losing. There was so much drama at Dark Horse that it was just. I don't think I had any book that I worked on. Big Game, Bad Blood, Instant Piano, The Mask. I don't think the editor made it through all 4 issues.
Mm.
There was constant upheaval. There was
Yeah.
constantly new editors. There was one guy who actually went bunkers and had to be like escorted out. He was
Yeah.
like, "But what is going on in the water up there? That
Yeah. I don't know.
it's like the crazies or something like that." But people were leaving
But
constantly.
surviving a job like that goes through that level of upheaval, I didn't know it at the time,
Yeah, it
but
was bad.
it was giving me professional and life skill training that I would lean on later, because in the film industry, it's much more common that there's upheaval, producer changes, director changes, significant creatives. And I had been conditioned from a young age after that Predator experience to just,
You
do
can't
the
count
best.
on anything.
Yeah, you can't count on anything. And I still feel sad, wondering, like, sometimes what would have happened if Chris had stayed with it? What if he'd inked it to the end?
It would have been
Would the book have sold better? Would it
no,
have mattered? I
no.
don't know. And
He would
this
have
is
had
where
he would have had nicer looking originals.
yeah, I
He
would have.
might have changed some of the confusion that is in the last issue because
Yeah,
the script has too much
it
going on.
gets crazy. And also, like I mentioned, I think my conceptual idea around panel arrangement, while compelling at the time, I don't know if it was the right move. And again, I think
Yeah.
that Chris probably would have reined me in a little bit more.
You were doing that on issue 2. I mean,
I
actually,
know, and it balances
at
well in issue
if you
2.
look at this piece, you were doing these design elements for panels, and this works really well.
Yeah, exactly. And my thinking was, when Predator shows up and it's the Bad Blood Predator,
Yeah.
panels break down because it's insanity. And this thing
Yeah.
is insane. And I wanted a visual, but I learned after doing that job and in subsequent comic jobs that I already, in the way I draw people and the way I draw monsters and the way I draw stuff, I have a very organic and energetic kind of line, and it needs contrast and counterpoint. And so
Yeah.
sometimes a contained, restrained panel structure, or a constrained, restrained inker would really be beneficial for me, because
Well,
my crazy shit works best when it's in
it was your
contrast.
first gig, and you were trying a lot of things out,
It's true.
and
It's true.
editors changed, so Chris was a steadying force on both of us.
Yes.
He knows. I think he has a good story sense. He has a
Yes.
great art sense. His
Yes.
thinking reined you in.
Yes.
So I think that, not to be rotten or anything about it, but I understood a lot of your choices, but I thought that they did hurt some of the pages because, one, you needed the room. You were cutting 10% of some pages.
Yeah.
You were cutting into the page to make
Yeah.
those patterns, and the eye was not fluid through it, a lot of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the good thing is it was a lot of mayhem and things, so people could
But
sort of
it breaks down, and
yeah,
you can make a conceptual article argument that is the insanity of the
yeah,
experience was breaking
yeah.
down, and
But
it,
it's
the
still a
reader
narrative.
feel
It's like
disrupted.
shaky cam. It's
I
like
was
shaky cam a little bit.
exactly, and to be kind to my 20 and 21-year-old self, I
Yeah.
feel like even the crazy shit in that book was done with a degree of intention.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I wasn't just randomly losing my shit, but in hindsight, I think subsequent comics that I drew, like I drew a book for Dark Horse not too long after Bad Blood called The Machine, which was another one of their comics' greatest world.
Oh,
And that's where I first met Ian Eddington, who wrote Alien AVP Web. He wrote this issue of The Machine that I drew. And if you look at it, it's got more restraint, and I still did some tactical panel break stuff for emphasis. But then if you look at Ape Sapien, it's much more disciplined in terms of panel.
I thought Ape Sapien was a beautiful job. I really like that a lot.
Thank you. Although it does have the single worst drawn dolphin in the history of comics. There's a panel where I put a dolphin in the foreground. I didn't have the reference, and its silhouette is the most horrible fucking
Does it have
dolphin.
sunglasses on, and it's got like a drink with a
solid
umbrella?
a solid black silhouette saying, "I don't know how to draw dolphins." It haunts me.
I think that the idea was super solid, that you were literally bringing an alien approach to those pages. but I think between the hectic quality and the much too much going on in the script, so much, because we were choreographing every shot, and I think that to me, I like I something Jaime Hernandez has always said, that he's not interested in what the panels look like. He's interested in what happens in the panels.
Yeah.
And I think that clarity and what happens in the panels is the most important thing. When you have more time under your belt, you can start doing Prometheus layouts and crazy stuff that.
Oh man, if one of my students or interns, or like, because I've been a story supervisor for years, and so much of my notes and my ethos and my input for younger artists is about clarity, and like I would have eviscerated myself if I got those kids.
It's like I was saying about the script. I would pull so much of that dialogue off the page to allow things to breathe. You could see by reading it that I would double up on things. I would have an ironic transition to a scene, and instead of letting just that sit, I would also have a follow-up.
But conversely, I will argue on our to be kind to our past selves. As I've settled and accepted the fact that this was a thing that happened and it is what it is, and no matter what I might change about it today, I have a fondness for the energy and purity of the effort, because it feels a little like a Shaggy garage demo tape, that comic, and I feel like it was kind of punk rock, and it was pushing the boundary, and I think a lot of the fandom and a lot of the people that have appreciated that book have appreciated it for some of the reasons that you and I feel self-conscious.
It's also one thing I always try to, it's not a knocked out book. It was thought about. We both had an approach to it. We were serious about it. And the fact that maybe it was us feeling that we were trying out to be in comics in a way. I was just looking at a job. I've been reading a lot of EC comics, old EC comics, because I'm writing some stuff for the Oni EC revival. And I was looking at some of the artists at EC, like Joe Orlando, as they would do Harvey Kurtzman's first job, Joe Orlando's first job. They are so filled. They're filled to bursting, because you can tell the artist is going, I've got to make this as good as I possibly can. So they throw 10 pounds of something into a 5-pound bag. They're trying so fucking hard. Like, there's scenes where people are talking and there's birds in front of things and there's backgrounds and it is so clustered that it's hard to read what's going on in some panels. I just think that's a natural. You're trying to tap dance, juggle, and do magic tricks all at the same time.
And I had a full course load at school and was trying to graduate. Like I miraculously, my senior year, I was able to negotiate with the faculty or school leadership to get class credit, studio credit for Predator. So I did get some school credit.
So there's your royalties.
Yeah, well,
we didn't make royalties, but you got class credit.
Got some class credit, but it was a slog getting it. Aaron, Adam, you guys have some questions.
We've kind of been like free flowing and weaving them in here, but
we're reliving our Predator. Like I said, I've had to really dig and try to remember things, because I have not been asked about this. I haven't pulled the back issues since I haven't looked at these comics in a very, very long time.
Yeah, I started to be, I had fear about revisiting it because I would get queasy. And again, that you have to remember, like, wait a minute, be kind to your past self. You were learning. And I would not be the artist I am today if I hadn't gone through that gauntlet with Evan in that stretch of time. And I feel like there's as much as I have my, like, what I would have done differently or what I regret or I wish or whatever, the fact that it went down the way it went down probably was a better learning than if it had gone smooth, you know?
What you say about being kinder to ourselves as younger creators is interesting, because my attitude always was I'd be much more snarky at this point if I hadn't been in therapy for the last 6 years. As my third therapist, to be kinder to myself and to cut myself some slack. People like the book. People who like the book, I don't want to tell them, oh, this was, even Big Game, as much as I really, Big Game is hard for me to look at and deal with. If people enjoyed it, I'm glad.
Yeah.
That they were at least able. I mean, but it is a very It's like it's like if it was a movie, the suit was obviously done by people who didn't know what they were doing. But they still enjoy John's story. They still enjoy some of the visuals.
There's peak moments. There's moments I'm really proud of about that. Like anything.
The thing is that people like big. If people are into Bad Blood, that's awesome. They don't see the warts maybe that we do.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
That you guys are interested in talking to us about this comic, which we obviously are, have a lot of thoughts about and are dig. Again, if we were doing it now, we'd make a much technically better comic. But
would it be as punk rock? I don't know.
Would it be as like messy and nuts? Exactly. Just I'd be holding back.
Yeah.
It's half the charm of it in some regards, though. Like some of your paneling choices, Derek. It's a little bit of feral. You've kept using that word a lot in terms of describing the Bad Blood. It fits the feel of the narrative. So even if you're like on a technical level, or maybe this one's a little too hard to follow here, or this is too busy or whatever, it's just part of the overall ferocity and feral nature of what is going off with the predators in it. It's just all part of that thematic charm, even if you don't like it on a technical level after all this time.
It's funny you were. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No. I feel clear, and especially because I remember being intentional about it, that even if it wasn't executed at the level that I wanted, I feel like the conceit at its core had value. Go ahead, Evan.
Well, the thing, it's funny that he said that, because as I was thinking about it, is like, even if those pages have problems between our overstuffing everything and coming to it with maybe too much craziness, I thought that those panel choices and the adding up with the way he drew the character, the way he drew the two predators and designed them, and all the language bits, the helmet of the Enforcer has a symbol on it. He would be putting symbols, and the tattoos on the Bad Blood Predator. All the interesting, bizarre alien approach actually fills in. It kind of gives it this atmosphere that the Predator movies don't necessarily have, because the Predator movies take place on Earth and they have, earthly reactions to everything. Whereas his pages are almost like an alien language. They're almost
there's a lot of texture.
There's a lot of texture, and taking from the character designs to design those pages that give it a really weird feel.
I think it's also important to point out how much a product of its time that book is, because the 90s were definitely, in comics in the early 90s, there was a sort of a extreme amplification of everything in terms of visual detail.
There's a lot of stylistic choices.
Yeah. I was definitely much more mindful, even in my early years, of the importance of foundational, clear storytelling as opposed to style for style's sake. I definitely had a strong reaction against a lot of what was happening in popular comics, where it was just all a lot of mark making, but not like, I studied anatomy. I wanted every page I did on that book to make me better at anatomy, to make me better at designing shots. So I felt conscious of having a strong foundation and having clarity that having a strong foundation would make all the textural and stylistic stuff sing. It just went too far. I think issue 2 probably is the sweet spot. 1 and 2, the ones that Chris inked, and 2 especially, I think like 2 examples of where that style was tactically used to great effect. And I think that's the sweet spot.
Well, here's another thing to remember. You thought Chris was going to be inking issue 3.
Yes.
So you were designing 3 with that in mind, that you were going to have this strong inker which is, to me, what's amazing is that Chris is a very strong stylist of his own. And I can see Chris in those pages, but he really did not overrun your pages at all.
No. I felt like he respected my pencil in a way,
which I thought was terrific, because I was wondering how hard he was going to ride over that, because there's always that issue especially back in inking is not as important to mainstream comics as it used to be. I miss it, but coloring has become so much more important.
We had a colorist for those first 2 as well. The colorist changed.
We had Chris Challenor on the first ones, and he was really good at picking stuff out and making it.
Prologue colorist I didn't care for, but
printing wasn't that great in 93. I mean, in 93, you know what I mean? We had a lot of, your some of it printed dark.
Mm,
If I look at your originals and then I looked at the issue, and you can see it's saturating. It's still 90s color, which is not. It didn't go all digital and was able to really solidly pick things out.
yeah.
You were still up to what the printer did in much harsher terms. But yeah, you were inking for Chris. You were penciling for a style that you'd established with Chris, and that's rough. I've seen it happen in several books I've worked on.
I seriously, years after that, felt like writing apology letters to the other inkers. Like, I'm sorry.
No. It's that, don't take the job. Don't take the job. The thing is also, if you look at your pages, if you look at your fight scenes, even though they get out of hand, you're making life harder on yourself, which is a very interesting choice.
Oh, it was a lot of that.
You're not just having these two guys. I mean, you're not doing, to look at your cover, which you did because, you're not just having one guy on top of another guy and it's very straightforward. You were having them angle. You were having up camera, Dutch angles, down camera, multiple angles on one page. And while that might be overly enthusiastic and make the page a little harder for the reader, it's credit to you that you were going nuts, because you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to put the Predator in in the upper corners shape to fight the one between and have people behind it. It was nuts. You could have calmed down a lot if you wanted to. So I didn't mind that.
Well, that's nice to hear.
I like that you were going for it.
It was definitely not restrained.
The other thing is, it's much easier also to look at art and go, wow, this is all out of control, than to look at a script and go, this is all out of control. So I get to hide a lot of my bad stuff, and they're like, ooh, don't notice this, please. There's some pages where I'm like, what did a 6-year-old write this? What is he? What is? You're actually using the spider web analogy? Fucking Christ, dude! Come on, grow up. It was embarrassing. But yeah.
So, Evan, did you say earlier that you hadn't seen Predator 2 and
no,
you were okay?
No, I didn't see it till years later. Yeah.
Okay. So that would be why the CIA in this aren't a continuation of the organization from Predator 2 then.
It just made sense to me that Earth would know what's going on.
You intuited the right thing.
I mean, it's not a very original idea. We've got an alien here. Let's send out the troops. I mean, it was just, I don't know where I came up with this convoluted. Our main character used to be in the CIA. It's just, it's ridiculous. It's way too many moving gears, in my opinion. If I was writing that as a movie script, you'd have to strip a lot of it out, I think, because you've got the local sheriff's department, you've got the paintball guys, you've got a guy who's running a paintball camp. I guess maybe that's another reason it worked for his job, a guy who used to be involved with guns and stuff, and he's sort of still involved with it, but he's not killing anybody anymore. He's got a paintball.
It's funny, like all of your reflections on how complicated and jammed it was, like none of that occurred to me as I was interpreting it. I just was interpreting.
Yeah, well, it got so hard to be able to keep spinning the plates, because you want to concentrate on your main characters. You want to concentrate on John and his people.
Yeah.
But I ended up with this conspiracy theory stuff and having the CIA who are telling everybody that they're the FBI, which makes it even more complicated. Which is, if you notice, it's probably why everybody that walks on the page gets wiped out. So nobody can go walk off and go, hey, the FBI is here and the CIA and there's helicopters. Again, the good thing about the Pine Barrens is that it's really big. Jersey is a very big state, and the Pine Barrens is this insane place where there's still lots of wilderness there. It's a place where what they've tried to, I probably had heard this at the time, that when they've tried to build there, when they've tried to, landscape and build there, the machinery has fallen into swamps. They just cannot tame a lot of that land. And that seemed like a great place to throw monsters. But I threw so much busy work. He's kidnapped and they let him out, and these ones let him. I mean, I think some of it's fun, but it's so overrun with trying to be clever and tricky. When John is who the hell? So John, I think, gets pulled out of the hospital. I think that sort of worked because people were expecting the Predator to be knocking everybody out. I was hoping that would be a good swerve, but it's just too much, way too much. I think we should have spent more time with our main characters and gotten to know them a little bit better. But it's just constant fighting and yelling and smart ass remarks. I mean, I'm glad it works for people, but I mean, I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, some of the dialogue is trying so hard to be movie cool, and it doesn't really work. But yeah, I had not seen Predator 2. I just brought in, who could fight the Predator? I mean, who could keep the Predator at bay or make things more difficult than just, I knew I didn't want to just do, here's 5 people in the Pine Barrens and they're fighting one alien, well, it is an alien. And I think I junked it up way too much. I made it way too crazy. I was trying too hard. It was like the equivalent of putting a lot in a panel. I was putting a lot on each page. I mean, I had to find room for splash pages because I wasn't opening it up enough for Derek. That's why I love that splash.
I think the craziness and just the fast pace of it is just part of the appeal. Like you were saying, Derek, the comic is very just punk rock. And I think it plays to that, just like, whoa, this is happening and he's saying this crazy thing and now it's going to this. So it at least for us, it really worked, I thought.
I'm glad. And I just didn't know if the characters stuck at all. You know what I mean? I didn't know if I felt like I shortchanged the crew. I mean, part of that was I knew that one of the reasons my scripts are detailed is because I feel how do you write something without knowing what you're writing? I mean, I don't enjoy the Marvel method of writing where you basically say page 1, the Predator's ship is being chased by 3 ships. They hit him and he starts to crash land, and then give that to a penciler and then say, you go figure it all out. Literally page 5, fight scene. It happens in comics all the time. To me, that's not writing. It's almost not even plotting.
In film work, sometimes the slight brief is actually really appealing as a story artist. I've worked from full script, I've worked from treatment, I've worked from outline, I've worked from a phrase or a sentence across all the different films I've done story work on, and I find both appealing. There is a time when page 5, a huge fight breaks out, is kind of a challenge as a visual storyteller, because it's like, okay, well, how can
My problem is I think at that point you're a co-writer.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's what the Marvel method kind of was. And again, in comics, it's slightly different than in feature film.
The writer gets to go, the Justice League and the Legion of Superheroes are fighting the Legion of Doom, and 8 planets are blowing up. I'm done for the weekend. I'll see you Tuesday.
Yeah.
You make that happen. It's like,
well, it's kind of abdicating responsibility.
You're a fight choreographer, you're a storyteller, and you're a writer, and you're only getting paid to pencil. If I gave you a script that said the Predators fight for 4 pages, work it out, you're co-writing.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't get co-writing.
They don't do that.
Yeah, it's a different thing in animation and in film, and depending on the director, there are different degrees through which you are entrusted with some of those other things. And I mean, being a comic book artist is some of the best foundational training for me to be a better visual storyteller, not just in terms of my continuity, but in terms of design too. And I always think in terms of my concept and my creature design, what are the ways to reinforce the storytelling? But that collaboration with writers and the page is always different. And again, I appreciated the thoroughness of your scripts.
I think there's a script that maybe the artist, I can understand them saying, this is too tight. I feel like I'm being led and not able to put a lot into this. And I said, you know what? Tell me what you want to do. Let's talk about it. I just want to make sure the story makes sense.
Yes.
And that we don't find ourselves trying to figure out an ending and caught up in painting ourselves into corners, which I think a lot of comics do. We've only got 5 issues. We want to get a lot of action things in this. We want some character bits. We want some bullshitting around and stuff. We want to show some cool stuff. But I mean, there's always leeway, and then there's always like let the artist do their thing. But then there's also just kind of like putting everything on the artist's shoulders. And I mean, the Roy Thomas used to rip pages out of a Conan book and send them to John Buscema, and you get writing credit. You get writing and plotting paid for that. That's nonsense. I mean, that's an extreme example, but If somebody has to sit there and figure something out, they're writing.
Yeah.
And so that's, I'm off on a tangent though, but yeah, I mean, I just think that everything should be there. You should have all the tools in the script so that nobody is last minute getting on conference calls to go, holy shit, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to wrap this up in 3 pages or 8 pages. The thing that's great about Marvel comics and DC comics, sometimes I'm jealous. It's like I always laugh. I make a joke about it, is that you don't have real endings. You beat up somebody or you show a planet blowing up, and then the end of your miniseries, you can just say, look forward to the crossover we're doing. That you don't actually have an ending to so many stories because it's constant. They don't wrap things up as often as someone like me does in my scripts. If you read a Mask series that I wrote, it has a beginning, middle, and ending. Predator, Bill and Ted's, all that stuff. I really believe in giving people a full, satisfying story. And sometimes, and also you have to explain a lot of who your characters are. Or sometimes when the few times I've done any kind of Marvel work was great because I'd be like, I don't have to tell anybody who Iron Man is or the Hulk. Captain America, he's Captain America, which is kind of great. Trying to get people to like your new characters in the Predator book was difficult because for good or bad, I put so much in there that you don't really get to know them. They're always shooting and yelling.
It's been an interesting transition for us from Dark Horse to Marvel with the properties. I mean, they're not superhero comics, obviously, so I think there were some expectations for how the stories would go that Marvel recognized. So they're not like ongoing.
I forgot that Marvel was doing new stuff with them, but aren't they having Predators like fighting the superheroes and shit?
They've been doing a number of crossovers now, yeah, and some of them have been surprisingly really good.
Yeah.
Alien,
it's just such a different way. To me, it's like Predator versus Batman. Well, Batman just got killed. Got his head ripped off. That sucks.
Those Predator versus Batman ones are pretty good.
Fighting with all the superheroes too, and I can get on board with that.
To be fair to the Marvel guys, they have sort of like placed them off in its own Predator versus Marvel universe.
Oh wait, so the Predator universe is like the Predator and Alien stuff is in the Marvel universe fully. It's not just crossovers.
No, they just for the crossovers, it's like different than the core Predator, I would say, or Alien.
What is it, like an Elseworlds thing or something? Like out of continuity, but with Spider-Man kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought they had them in the regular books, which it just doesn't jive. I mean, I'm sure they can do a great job with it. Anybody, a good artist, a good writer will do it. But it's just such a weird, to have an R-rated horror style creatures running around in the comic book universe.
It's weird. It's pure 10 to 12-year-old brain, though. It's like,
I can see the Punisher up against the Predators. That might be because he's such an oddball character that doesn't really fit.
Yeah, you don't have like superheroes randomly popping into Predator comics now or anything like that. It's only like for an established crossover comic.
Right. Who have they used from the Marvel?
They brought back
Wolverine,
Ron Schaefer for Predator, but for the crossovers, there's Wolverine, there's Black Panther crossover with Predator.
They're doing
Spider-Man is the one that's going on.
So not like have they had like Predator and Thor where
you can't do that? It'd be over.
Exactly. That's what's funny about it. It's like somehow the Predators keep meeting the guys who fight bank robbers.
Well, they're doing Alien versus Avengers right now, which is a pretty wild one.
And the aliens have fucked up most of the world and the characters, and yeah.
Well,
wouldn't Dr. Doom just fuck them up? Wouldn't Magneto just fuck them up? That'd be pretty funny to watch one of the Marvel guys, load and watch. I would pay money maybe for the Punisher loading bullets into a predator, into an alien, and all that blood lands on him and he's done. That'd be fucking great. Frank Castle. That'd be.
They're having fun with the deaths of the Marvel heroes and stuff. So they're enjoying it.
It's kind of in that vein of like Marvel Zombies, where they're just kind of going to town. They have liberty to fuck them. Okay, that makes sense.
That makes sense, right? Yeah, I thought they originally were like putting them into the universe, and I was like, no. you know.
I think they kind of.
Here's a good Predator, and he's holding Thor's hammer. How did he do that? Wow. There's a good Predator on the Defenders. Hi, everybody.
I'm curious, Adam, are there any aspects of Bad Blood, either in the conception, the production, the content, that we didn't touch on that you guys are eager or curious to?
I did have a question,
Adam,
about the covers real quick, Derek. So you did all the main covers, right? As far as I know, there were not variants for this run.
No variants were done. Each cover was painted traditionally with acrylic on board. They probably averaged about 40 hours each to paint. I would do an underdrawing that was fairly thorough. Like I said, I was in my illustration studies during the production of the job, and I was I remember especially when I was working on the cover for issue 1, had been doing some study around Maxfield Parrish's glazing techniques, which were very, very, very thin techniques to build up color intensity and saturation. So that issue 1 cover with the 2 close-up faces and the gun kind of going off, that was all like an experiment in the Maxfield Parrish methodology. I was really keen on doing a Predator Vision cover because I thought a Predator in Predator Vision was a cool idea, and that was number 2. Right. I do remember painting the Predator was drooling. The Bad Blood Predator was drooling, and it was splashing on the branch in the foreground. And Dark Horse painted it out because they thought it looked like he was peeing on the branch instead of drooling. But the original
they gotta go sometime, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I don't see any armor there that's to induct the urine.
And then now that I look, but it was funny at the time. That cover actually is a good example of the.
He's still drooling.
Yeah, see,
but just a little bit.
Yeah, he's drooling. So now that log in between his legs was where there was a splash and a drip.
I can see why they would do. Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah, it
I
does.
see it at the time.
That's funny.
But I really enjoyed painting. Issues 3 and 4, weirdly, are less successful painted covers, I feel, and it was partly what was happening in the interior too. I think I was struggling to have discipline. Issue 3, it feels almost like a fantasy landscape in the background. I really struggled painting the ellipse of the Predator's sort of flying blade. And then 4 was
I like 3. Yeah, I like 3.
I like 3. I struggled with it. 4, I was also going for a high concept because I wanted the glowing blood to be the light source. And I used all purples and greens, and then learned after the fact that those are apparently the 2 worst colors you could choose for color reproduction. So I literally, you mentioned earlier, Evan, about making things harder for myself and for everybody. And I feel like that purple green cover too. I mean, they all have things I love about them. I feel like the success varies, but that's the general. Those are the specs. I'm sorry, Adam, if I didn't.
No, I was looking for some thoughts on those covers, and you gave them. The purple and green one is actually my personal favorite. I really
awesome. I love hearing that. That's
and nice. I believe Marvel has republished these, at least digitally, these issues. So if by some chance you're listening to this podcast, and
they were in
the omnibus, I know that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they published the covers in there too. Did they publish?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good.
But that's been a good thing that Marvel has done with these omnibus, is rather than what Dark Horse did in their omnibus, where it was just, here's everything from your Dark Horse comics anthology prequel, here's issue 1, 2, 3, just as a continuous flow. Marvel's actually done, here's the issue, here's the cover, here's the next cover, here's the issue, and done it like that, which has been nice.
Cool.
Yeah, but I noticed on the single issue publications on just Amazon, they have like a really high resolution version of just the artwork unobstructed, and we haven't seen too much of those before, so it was nice to see those. But just to cap off here, so following the publication of Bad Blood, the concept was picked up many times across the fall, books, comics, movies, and games. The idea of Predator versus Predator conflict played a large part of 2 of the films and the upcoming one as well. Your character, Mandy Graves, was brought back in the Predator Hunter series, which was the last series that Dark Horse did for Predators, written by Chris Warner. Both Enforcer and Bad Blood Predators had figures made of them, so how do you guys feel about just the impact your series has had on the franchise and the legacy of Predator Bad Blood? It must make maybe you won't go so hard on yourself, Aaron, knowing just how influential this has been.
I mean, it's been a bit of an education to, as Evan mentioned earlier, like I think both of us were sort of late to the party in realizing that
Yeah.
the book and the content had traction. I will say, as the films have rolled along, I've definitely keyed on like, oh, they must have read Bad Blood. Like there were, and that sort of, you know, especially in the Shane Black one, that sort of feral predator, and a bit in the Robert Rodriguez one, there's kind of a predator thing. But it's cool. I think the NECA toys was sort of the peak, like, wow, this has been validated. This series
Yeah, that was really
means something. And they did such a loving job on those figures. I mean, they're beautiful. And they are also weirdly emblematic of what is true about that comic series, is that they're wildly overwrought and over detailed and just like to the nth degree. But I remember looking at them going, wow, well, that's pretty cool that this comic that, you know, was tough has gotten traction with people. So I feel good about that.
That's one of the reasons I like the designs, because when I saw them as the toys, that really reinforced for me that because they didn't have to be live action suits and they didn't have to deal with the pragmatic reasons that you do or don't put attachments or design things on a creature because of movement and because of, you know, mobility of the actor and whatnot, we were able to go over the top and they stand out when you look at them next to the other toys. That was like the first time I realized, wow, they look really, you know, the Enforcer just looks really slick. There's just something really nice looking about them. And also we made different weapons. You know, we added a lot of different weapons. I don't know if were the discs part of the,
the sword. Fun small story. Remember when I was sharing earlier that I'd gotten to visit the Stan Winston studio? Yeah. That's where I got the idea for the sword, because they had built a sword, but I don't think it's used in Predator 2. But there's the bone.
The Elder just holds it.
Yeah.
What?
The Elder just shows up holding it.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't it, but that sword idea came from that. I added the tri-blade just because I thought it would be cool and extra.
Yeah. Some of the weapons, some of the bone weaponry that the Bad Blood Predator has looks really nifty. I mean, the thing is, it's also separated out, and you really get to look at the figure as a statue or a toy. You really get to take it in a way that you kind of don't in the comics with his backgrounds and everything. And I just thought both of them really stand out really nicely. I always thought those designs that you did, just I can see why people would react to them. I just periodically, I didn't know anybody was reading the comic. I figured they just liked the toys.
But periodically there'll be these reminders. Like I think I posted a couple of the covers on my Instagram a while back, and people would write in the comments, "Oh my God, I still have those issues. They were some of my favorite." Like it's clear that there are folks that connected with it, and that's always validating as an artist, you know, because there's stuff I've done that's disappeared into the ether, and I mean it's etched in our brains because Evan and I lived that. I mean, Evan, you probably weren't fraught day to day during production because you'd written the script, and really you were helping me navigate things by giving me reassurance on phone calls. I have to say, Evan was very patient. I was someone who would call a fair amount. I mean, we enjoyed talking together and had our communication was really smooth. But as far as like, I don't know if this is common with other pencilers you've worked with on other comics, Evan, but I felt like I may have strained needing input more.
No, I've actually had seasoned professionals. I've worked with at least one seasoned professional who was very needy and having a bit of a meltdown. And yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, but no, I mean, we both didn't know what the fuck we were doing. I mean, you knew what you wanted to do. I knew what I wanted to do. That doesn't mean that we could easily get that on paper, because it was like we said, like, you know, it was, you know, you've unlocked memories of how difficult the script was for me and how much I was afraid of flopping because I thought I would never get another job. I would never get another script job in comics, as far, because I needed,
Getting work in comics in those years post Bad Blood was really. I mean, I had to give up on comics. I had to go to a completely different industry because it was so dire.
I had other ways to go because I was starting to do very well with my cartoon stuff that I was doing myself, Milk and Cheese, Instant Piano, Dork. So I had that direction. Also, soon after that, I don't remember how close, but Sarah and I got hired to do Space Ghost. So I was, and anthologies was still big at the time, like Dark Horse Comics. My bread and butter comics wise was doing 2 pages to 8 pages for various comics, and then collecting them all in issues of Dork and Milk and Cheese. That all died out by the end of the decade.
Maybe it's time to do the Milk and Cheese versus Predator comic that everybody's been asking for.
Yeah, no.
Would you guys seriously want to come back for that, or if you were?
We're not doing Milk and Cheese versus Predator. We don't have the.
Well, maybe not that, but if you could do,
I was seriously considering.
We could have Milk and Cheese versus Predator, but we couldn't use the Predator logo, and the Predator would have to be invisible the entire comic,
which would be hilarious. Oh my god!
They would just be throwing eggs at it that they can't afford. Well, we'll see. I mean, certainly I have ideas, but I used to draw a weird little Predator. I wish I could find an image of it. The best Predator I ever drew was this chibi Predator.
Yeah, I'd love to see your chibi Predator. You should do one of those. I haven't drawn a Predator in a long time. I did do a drawing.
The art. People liked it enough to buy all the art. I mean, I can't,
I should try pages. I did do a drawing of the Predator from Prey a year or so ago, just as a little bit of Instagram fan art. That was a fun guy.
I sold the Predator omnibus to somebody because I have all that stuff already, and I didn't need a giant book that I could break my feet with. And I sold it to a guy on my Patreon, but I did a drawing of the Predator with Milk and Cheese. I got to find that.
Did you get a photo of it?
I've got it scanned. The Predator came out shitty as usual. I told him, I'm sorry, I don't know how to draw.
I'm telling you, you got $1 million idea right there.
I have never had $1 million idea. If I did, I would. Would I have a chair that looked like this? Look at your nice stuff. My cat has destroyed everything I own, and I can't replace it. So yeah, I'll be doing Predator versus Milk and Cheese on Tuesday, tomorrow. No.
Well, should Marvel not go with that one, would you guys ever actually want to do a sequel to Bad Blood or a remake? Maybe.
I would do it to work with Derek again. I'd watch.
The working with Evan is totally real. We've floated or entertained ideas here and there. My work schedule and commitments are pretty substantive, and drawing comics is a time-consuming thing. If I ever did comic stuff again, it tends to be like maybe if I could do a cover or something very short. Story work that I do and professional stuff is pretty demanding in terms of drawing volume. In comics, I don't know if I could do a monthly or do a series without having to table other things. I drew Abe Sapien while I was full-time at ILM, and that was really hard. I did the Visionaries Star Wars thing, was probably the last commissioned comic work I did. I love the form, and I work with a lot of folks who come from comics. I used to really appreciate that about Pixar. A number of comic book veterans and pros who I'd known over the years found their way there. So there's I love the form and would love to do it again, but it's fucking hard. Comics are so hard. It's like
harder because now everybody wants the comics to look.
Yeah, the level that they're drawing.
I mean, you look at old Marvel and DC comics and romance comics, they had to draw those outfits and everything like that. But, they drew a boot that was just basically, think about Captain America's boot in old drawings, and now Captain America's boot is a military style boot with all these details and every bit of texture on the soles and the shoelaces and the way they wrap into his costume now is all armored
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, because there's a lot of people making the comics look more like the movies, which I think is a mistake, but that's just me.
Yeah. I wouldn't.
But I mean, comics is so demanding right now. There's a reason that almost nobody draws a monthly anymore and sticks with it for years like they used to.
But I would never fully rule out a comic book thing or collaboration, especially as I've gotten older. I've really learned that the people you collaborate with matter more often than the substance or the content that you work on. And I've worked on shows where I wasn't that jazzed about the material, but the people were great. And I've worked on shows where the material's right up my street, but the people were hard. So I mean, one of the things I still really reflect on fondly about Bad Blood was that the working relationship with Evan was just, it was great all the way through. Like we never, I don't feel like we ever argued, or if we disagreed, we didn't disagree
No, I've never had fights with anybody. I've never had that kind of.
Well, I've had difficult times with comic collaborators outside of our experience, so I know there's a difference, and I really value that.
Well, there are some people who treat newcomers or people who are just breaking in, and they feel that they can, you know.
And you know, you work in the movie business for as long as I have. You also deal with some colossal assholes, so I understand the spectrum, and it makes me appreciate and value what Evan was as a creative partner and collaborator. Is that it was very.
Oh, thank you.
I know. You should get but it's real.
It's funny because I don't love the Predator, but here's the thing: like I didn't like the Mask much when I wasn't a big fan of the Mask. But if you have an idea, you just you want to tell. You know, I had a Predator idea, and I was like, I can only use this story for Predator. I mean, you hear a lot about people coming up with something that like. I mean, I did it. I came up with some stuff for the Eltingville, the Welcome to Eltingville series, and when it wasn't picked up, 2 of the stories I was able to turn into scripts for Bongo Comics, for the Bart Simpson comics, because the story was about teenage nerds, and I was able to use the nerdy aspects of Milhouse and Martin and all those, and it worked perfectly. But growing up, I remember Stan Lee wrote a column, and I think he's a bullshitter most of the time, but he was right about this, even if he probably didn't follow it himself. If you write an Iron Man story, okay, and then you can turn that into a Human Torch story overnight, you know, then it wasn't a very good Iron Man story.
Yeah. I feel like there's an Englehart quote that was attributed similar. Like if you can write a good you can write a Batman story that Superman fits into, it's not a good Batman story.
Not a good Batman story. So I have a lot of dead stories that I cannot resurrect because they were done for Superman adventures. We did some pitching, some plots they came to us with, some I threw at them, and then I threw a few at DC. And if you didn't get them done, it's a Superman story. You cannot just make it a Man Thing or a Ghost Rider or a Thor.
Can you try and make it a Man Thing though? I'd watch Man Thing versus Predator.
Man Thing versus Predator would be pretty fucking. You'd want to draw that.
Have we made this?
Wait, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Oh,
you know why?
Why? Because magic.
What's his shtick?
Fear.
Predators don't fear, man.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'd have to
find. We do a story about a ship full of pussy predators, right? The weakest predators are sent out into space to show that they're basically it's like a reality TV for predators. They put them on a planet and they've got cameras set up all over the place to follow them, right? And it's basically a joke on these suckers, but they end up on Earth and they deal with the Man Thing and a bunch of them burn.
It writes itself. Hey, before I forget, Aaron and Adam, I was curious because we were talking about Predator influences and inspirations. And I remember one other piece. I'm curious if you guys have read this, but back when in between Predator and Predator 2, my friend recommended a book to me called Hunters of the Red Moon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. Have you guys ever read that book?
I haven't.
Can't say I haven't.
You guys should read this book because essentially the gist of the thing is that a human being and a bunch of other aliens get picked up by these aliens and put on a world, and then they get hunted by invisible hunters. And it's like almost certainly must have been in the root DNA of the people who originally did Predator. And I'm always fascinated by lineage and antecedents and the things that influence the things, because I find that endlessly interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not on your radar, I would read that book.
Sounds like one for genetic memory, Adam.
I was about to say the same thing.
What's genetic memory?
We do like a side podcast for our Patreons where it's things that are Alien or Predator inspired, or things that we think of inspired Alien or Predator. Wow. Things that share that same sort of DNA.
Yep, that sounds like a great candidate.
So
the only
that
problem is
one,
Marion Zimmer Bradley is a horrible person.
Well, let's not make judgments about people, but I don't know. I don't know. I believe you. Okay, if she's
abused her own kids. Yeah.
Well, you can pretend she's not an abuser when you read the book.
If you find the book in a library, don't spend money on her.
Yeah,
she's dead, but still.
There you go.
Nasty stuff.
Oh, that's horrible.
Okay. I know it's tough. These days we know a little bit about everybody, and a lot of people suck.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the general gist of existence these days.
Yeah.
I find.
But
any other floating, burning questions that need answers?
No. So we've pretty much covered everything we were were wondering about. So the only real thing to ask you guys now is any social outlets that you want to direct people to.
I mean, I have my Instagram, Derek Monster Art. I've been posting a lot of. I do a lot of just monsters for fun. I realized late in my career that I want to remember how drawing used to be something that made me smile and that I can enjoy. And I've never been on social media. I've never been on Facebook. And then a few years ago, a creative colleague of mine really encouraged me to just do at least an Instagram and post stuff. And I have all this art. So
Derek's Instagram is fantastic, by the way.
I post a lot of concept art and stuff I've done on feature films and comics and that sort of thing. But I also just do monster drawings because I love drawing monsters and I love monster movies and thinking about monsters and weird ones. And so, yeah, that's the only real outlet. I don't have Patreon or any of that other stuff.
You don't need one. You work for Pixar.
Yeah. But it is weird when you work at film studios. You do get kind of buried in a corporate studio reality. So it's, again, the Instagram's been fun for me the last few years, and it's been a way for me to introduce work I've done years ago. Like I just recently posted a bunch of stuff from the Tim Burton Superman film, which I worked on nearly 30 years ago, and people were just so excited. It was nice to feel like an enthusiasm around old stuff.
Well, your whole Instagram is like he does. If you're not following him at this point, he does series of drawings of movie monsters, television monsters, D&D monsters, comic book monsters. They're wonderful. You do them in colored pencil, right?
Yeah, just colored pencil.
And so he'll just start hitting these creatures from the 50s.
Some stuff, merman, this kind of thing.
But he'll draw stuff from guys in rubber suits, and they look like guys in rubber suits to a degree, to kaiju. It's terrific. I love it. If I didn't know Derek, I'd be following his Instagram anyway.
Thanks, Evan.
It's true, God damn it! And where's that $5?
Where do you want the people to go? Where do you want Predator Bad Blood fans to go find your stuff?
That sounds like a punchline to go. I don't know. I don't think Predator Bad Blood fans would like my Instagram. There's no Predator.
That's not true.
There's no Predator on it. There's some TV stuff once in a blue moon that they might like. I don't know.
They're holding out
on Instagram at
Predator.
I'm on Instagram at Evan Dorkin, but I mostly put pictures of my cat, Winky the pirate girl, up.
You have a Patreon, don't you?
I have a Patreon, but I can't find the Predator scripts. I would post them if I could find the goddamn things. I have a Patreon. I'm not on Twitter. I quit Twitter I only stayed on Twitter because of Eltingville fans, and then I tried to get them all to come to Blue Sky, and they did. So Twitter can burn in hell. And I'm on Tumblr, which a lot of the stuff that I'm doing has to do with my comic book and the old pilot for Eltingville. It somehow has been resurrected through TikTok. And people have been watching the pilot, which is on the pilot. If you're science fiction, horror movie, comic book nerd, geek, it's on. It's called Welcome to Eltingville. It's on YouTube. It's about the worst toxic fans ever, but it's funny. Hopefully, it's kind of like the anti-Big Bang Theory. It came out
How
in
many total issues of Eltingville material did you produce, Evan?
I did about 10 stories.
10 stories. Have they been collected into one?
Yeah, actually, I have it right here, but you can't buy it. It came out in 2007, I think.
Why can't you buy it?
It's out of print and going for $250 to $300 right now because life got weird. I'm not kidding. And the comic books has started going for 50 to 150. Yeah, it's going to come back. We're reprinting all my out of print Dark Horse humor stuff. Going back to.
So there'll be a chance to get reprints of that stuff at some point.
Eltingville, Milk and Cheese, and Dork are going to be in 1/600. It's going to be an omnibus like this, which is the
Dorkibus.
No, it's just this is the book I do with Derek Thompson, which we just put out in a $30. This is the dogs and cats versus evil. It's not for kids. It's for some kids, but and yeah, all that stuff's going to come out. But that's what my social media has been taken over by. I mean, I'm just answering Eltingville questions like crazy. The thing is, the pilot failed in 2002.
But here's another example of something finding its audience.
It's bizarre. And the collection lost money, and it came out I think 8 years ago.
And now it's a highly sought after item. That's
TikTok.
Cool.
I'm not on TikTok, but I mean I know what it is. I'm not that old, but yeah, I'm on page. I'm on. Just look my name up. It's the only Evan Dorkin out there because I got cursed with that fucking name.
Have we broken the record for the longest, most wandering podcast you've ever done?
Oh no,
I've done worse.
We've had longer, more wandering.
I've done worse. I once talked to Tom Spurgeon from the Comics Journal, the late Tom Spurgeon, my good friend, for 13 hours straight.
Wow.
This is by far. This is not the longest that we have ever spoken. We once spent 3 hours talking about a 3-minute long trailer. So
wow, that's dedicated.
Well, I just want to say thanks to you guys for inviting us to talk about this. As I've said, it's been, and I think Evan will reinforce this, it's been a really long time since we really thought deeply or talked about this experience, and I think it's fun to revisit, and it's cathartic. And I also love the memory awakening.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I usually yap a lot on podcasts. I've just had a run of podcasts I'm doing out of the blue, and I co-hosted a UK podcast, The Good Friends of Jackson Alliance, which is a cool Cthulhu gaming and horror gaming thing. And we went long, but it's like, this is like, because I'm a talker, but I don't remember so much of this, and it's really opened up a lot of memories, and a lot of remembering what it was like to work on this thing, and
it was hard.
It was. Comics are not easy, especially when you're trying to impress people. You're working on a franchise that people are invested in.
Yeah.
When the first Predator comic came out, I bought them all.
I'll never forget the day I walked into the comic book store, Thrill Books in Encinitas, the day that first Predator comic was on the table. Yeah. It was like, cool, they're doing Predator comic. And then the second issue with just the close-up that Chris drew of the face, I was like, damn, he nailed it, because I couldn't. And oh man,
you could tell Chris did the covers for Big Game, because you could tell they wouldn't let me do the covers because it would have just been laughed off.
But you got good royalties off that shit. So
unbelievable! It's the most successful comic I've ever worked on, and probably ever will work on.
I think as
far as numbers go.
Issue 1 of Predator Bad Blood gave me a royalty check, and then I think from 2 on, 2 maybe trickled, but 3 and 4.
But we did get royalties on reprints. The
reprints did get royalty.
The collection did always be. That's why I was disappointed when Marvel got the rights. When was it Fox bought Marvel or Marvel bought Fox? I don't even remember. When one absorbed,
Disney brought Fox.
Disney owns everything, right? Because Marvel was not going to pay royalties.
Yeah.
So I thought that was, every couple of years, Dark Horse would put out a new version of the trade paperbacks, and because I had 9 issues worth of material, I'd get a couple of grand. They sold pretty well, and then Marvel took them over, and everybody was like, "Oh shit, there goes that stream." But I got to say, after a lot of people were putting complaints out there, and I don't know exactly what happened, but out of the blue, I got a check
Yeah, yeah. It's
from
not
Marvel. And I told Derek, make sure you get the check because I just
and I
got
went through and it was good I did because I also had Star Wars comics that were getting reprinted in places
Right.
by Marvel.
Did you get paid for those?
But yeah, I got paid.
No, it's good to know that
Well,
Fox, Disney, Marvel is paying for that material.
It was weird because I was looking for royalties for the Predator, but found out that they had extracted my story from Visionaries, the Dark Horse anthology, and reprinted it in other Marvel shit, and I had no idea. So that got some royalty as well.
Yeah, I'm glad because eventually it seems like this material will constantly be reprinted until we
Let's
die.
hope so. Let's hope so. We worked hard for those meager royalties.
I feel like it's been in print. I've got the Predator material in multiple versions, which is why I didn't need the omnibus because it's a huge book.
Yeah.
I got a Deadpool omnibus and I was like, what am I going to do with this? I have
give it to
trade
somebody
paperbacks.
Deadpool.
But yeah, anyway, I would do another Predator if Derek was doing it, so I guess I'll never do another Predator.
Keep an open mind. Never say never.
I do have an open mind. It's like I got a crack in my head right here.
Good.
Marvel is not interested in working with me and hasn't been in a very long time, or DC. So that's fine. That's all right. No, it's not. No, it is.
So thank you once again for Derek and Evan for joining us to talk about this time of their life, this long ago time, and this piece of iconic Predator media, an iconic Predator comment, an iconic Predator comic, even. But yeah, if you come to this podcast having no knowledge of who we are, you can find out more about us on avpgalaxy.net, which is the hub of our activity. There's message boards on there, old school message boards. You can find all our written content and regular news on the things that are happening in the Alien and Predator franchise. You can also find us on all the major social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube. So be sure to head on over to your preferred outlet. Also, Instagram. Head on over to your preferred outlet and give us a follow on there and keep up with the daily happenings of Alien and Predator. This has been Corporal Hicks, and thank you for listening.